Hey guys, you are watching your anime world. How are you all? Please support to subscribe this channel for watching new interesting stories. So in this video, we will see what if Deku became the hero of justice. Here is short summary. Most of us know the story of Izuku Midoriya and his rise as a hero in the shadow and later wake of All Might. But what if he had help in a variety of ways from a different kind of hero from what he has been raised to believe existed? But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and like this video. And if possible, share this video with your friends. Now let's start the story. The image view pans out over Earth and then leads to the sight of the moon and Earth together. Then the view shifts and zooms to the moon, or rather the facility on the moon's surface. A series of impressive buildings are scattered just beyond the Sea of Tranquility. From within these buildings a pair of people look out a viewport to see the Earth shining blue in a piece. The two are mostly silhouettes, but one is a well-built man and the other an attractive woman who floats around him. So, now that the next generation has made great strides, what do you think is next? She asks as she wraps her arms around his neck. I don't know, but maybe it's time we look elsewhere for things that need to be protected and people who could use saving, the man says while looking up at her and smiling. She gives him a skeptical look and says, "What exactly did you have in mind?" He gives a wry smirk and says, "I'll show you," and takes her to another room where a machine opens portal for new possibilities. Since I know most of us know the lead-up story with Izuku, I'm gonna cut to the meeting with Toshinori to keep it going forward. So do you think I can be a hero without a quirk? Izuku asks All Might, and to this All Might just sighs and looks down. Heroes face down all kinds of danger every day and there's no guarantee that they can save the day. So no, I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. As All Might says this, the look on Izuku's face shows that his whole world just came crashing down. As All Might is standing up, another voice calls out, "That's a pretty stupid and narrow-minded point of view, isn't it?" Both look around wondering where it came from. Then they look up to see a young man standing on top of the stairwell door. He looks fairly fit and tall at about 6 foot with dark brown hair, wearing a t-shirt and jeans combo with what appear to be black boots and a belt with a large buckle. The thing that draws to both of their eyes, however, are the sunglasses he is wearing. They look simple in appearance, but they both notice they fully cover his eyes to where no extra light appears to come in. That is when the young man says his next point, "Pretty sure that just your injury talking there, dude." As the young man smirks after saying this, All Might has this look of surprise at him being called dude. While Izuku has an even more shell-shocked face than before at the fact that someone who looks as young as he is would call the number one hero dude. After both have recovered a bit from the surprise, All Might says, "While some of that may be true, it doesn't change the fact that they face danger every day. And a quirk is honestly the only way to do that." To the young man replies, "Then you have clearly forgotten that heroes existed long before any powers were involved. Let alone the fact that heroic intent is often defined by single acts or even spur-of-the-moment actions and movements." With this, All Might has a bit of a discontent look on his face, due to remembering his own origin and acknowledging, if only in his mind, that what the young man says is true. While this back and forth is happening, Izuku is just looking between them both in confusion. Until he asks, "Do you not know who this is? He's All Might, the greatest hero ever, and the guy who was trying to let you down easy in the absolute worst way." The young man retorts and you see that he struck a nerve with both. As they are still smarting from that retort, he pushes on with, "I may not know much about all of this, but from what I've experienced around, the powers or quirks as you call them seem to be the worst thing that has happened to humanity." After that, both have extremely shell-shocked faces at someone saying that, to which he presses on with, "Far too many are so stupidly wrapped up in their powers that they can't see anything else. Let alone the fact that the powers may be more detrimental than they think." This gets Izuku mad as he says, "You are in no place to talk. The only way you could have followed us is with a quirk of your own. Like a flying or super strength one that let you keep up with All Might. So how can you say that when you are just the same?" To this the young man pauses and smirks a bit, then stating, "You're not wrong that I have powers. But I never said I had a quirk." To this both are stunned, and before they can ask the obvious question he replies, "I'm paraphrasing a quote from Shakespeare, but There are more things beyond your comprehension that cannot be defined by most sciences. I would say there are two bigger issues than even my origin and such. The first is that had you even considered what the kid might do given how garbage almost everyone in this society is when it comes to his condition and background, or were you just overly optimistic on what would happen? And the second and admittedly more pressing matter, did you even notice that the bottles with the slime guy in them were gone? To which All Might pats the pockets of his pants and starts panicking. And then proceeds to run down the stairs. As Izuku is realizing that he must have knocked the bottles out, he starts to break down in a panic. The young man puts a hand on his shoulder to snap him out of it and says, "Since your original ride ran off, I can give you a quick lift down." Before even replying, the tall teen grabs him and jumps into an alleyway a few streets away. After coming down from the surprise, Izuku begins questioning the young man about everything. Predominantly his power and how he is quirkless with his apparent capabilities. The young man keeps tight-lipped about this, mostly just smiling at Izuku's inquisitive nature. As they are walking, they hear an explosion and smell smoke from another street. They run to another alleyway where multiple pro-heroes are dealing with the same sludge villain that had attacked Izuku before. The pros are all talking about how they can't do anything about the matter without harming the hostage. Upon hearing this, the young man just scoffs, saying in his mind, "So this is how the so-called pros, or heroes, look at things. Not only are quite a few of them not very creative, but I can already tell that none of them have quite enough of what it means to be a hero. And yet here we are, planning to make a point and statement all the same. Although you being stuck in this shape is a bit of a problem," a second voice speaks to him in his mind, to which he replies, "Don't remind me." As he's about to go in to do something, he feels Izuku rush in from beside him. No plan, no idea what he can do, his feet just started moving on their own. At this the taller boy smiles, knowing he is witnessing a true hero, not one defined by something he can't control, but one defined by this courage and actions. As Izuku is running, he takes his backpack and throws it at the sludge villain's eye and blinds him long enough to get close to Bakugo and try to pull him free. Bakugo responds with, "What the hell are you doing here, Deku?" To which Izuku's only response is, with a shaky grin, "You looked like you needed saving." In other versions this would be where All Might would jump in to stop the villain after seeing a truly heroic young man showing him the truth he had forgotten. In fact, he is just about to do just that, when out of nowhere the other young man makes his move. His statement is simple: "I knew you had what it took to be a real hero, even if these idiots refuse to see it." With that, the young man unleashes a mighty punch that splatters the villain and even causes a change in the weather. Once his job is done, Death Arms tries to arrest him for illegal use of a quirk, to which he responds, "Why would I have something as worthless as a quirk?" Once they are all stunned by that statement, he says to Izuku, "I'll see you around, kid. You've got greater potential than you think." With that he leaps up high into the air, and when Mount Lady tries to catch him, a blue-skinned girl comes out of nowhere and seemingly winks them away. Not long after this, All Might comes to Izuku and tells him the thing he had been hoping to hear all along from anyone, that he too can be a hero. At this he proceeds to tell him about his quirk One for All and how he wishes to pass it on to Izuku. Even while going on a mumble spree and eventually accepting All Might's offer, in a different prefecture the young man smiles and the young blue-skinned woman asks, "Something good happened with that boy, didn't it?" "Yeah, and I think we may have someone to relate to and work with to a point here. Plus, who knows, he may help fix the messed up version of humanity that has appeared here," the young man says with a small smile. "It might be that justice still has a place in a world so badly warped." To those who may be questioning my aggressive put-down of quirks from my OC lead, it is honestly from a point of seeing major problems with too many people having far too many powers. For anybody who has seen The Incredibles, Syndrome's speech about the fact that when everyone is super no one is a very good point, and a problem that most of that world deals with more than they even care to look at. And it seems like their powers warp their minds as well, in contrast to the world of like the X-Men, where the mental problems or anger are similar or from experiences rather than the effect of their power. Two good examples are from the villains, where you get Toga, who is clearly influenced by her blood-based quirk, and Tabe from the Yakuza, who has been warped by his food quirk drove him insane. And I personally dislike the whole cheapening of what it means to be a hero. I may get more into that for a later chapter, but that is not why you came here. You're here to read about a hero's growth and those who help him along the way. Also, as an aside, if something is in italics, that is me speaking or putting my thoughts in. Izuku POV. After I accepted the chance to gain All Might's power and to train under him, I began a painstaking path to improving my body. Because as All Might put it, if I gained the power and tried to use it now, I'd probably blast my arms off and die. So, I began my training to build up the power to inherit the greatest hero's quirk. During the 10 months to build up my strength, I noticed an unusual pattern with reports in the news. Every so often a big bust was being reported, both in country and a few overseas. Often by the time the heroes showed up, some other witnesses reported that someone had already taken down the criminal group that was the focus. There were a few heroes who tried to profit or take the credit for this, but later some of the same heroes were later arrested for other various charges. While many were disturbed and frankly terrified by this strange vigilante who was targeting all sides, who apparently had enough strength to take down large and imposing villains with little effort, many more were praising the fact that crime rates in certain areas were going down. On the flip side, there was a boost to heroes who had shown not just great compassion on patrols and such, but also in more quiet moments doing simple things like what I was doing for my training, cleaning up a location or even just helping in small ways. Another strange point for those heroes was how some of the villains were restrained or captured. A few of them appeared to be just tied up with ropes, string, or, strangest of all, rings or bands of light. And the more curious part is the same thing tying the villains up disappeared when the police had them in the Maiden. Yes, that is what it was called when they arrested AFO. I kept thinking back to that strange guy who not only told All Might off, but also pulled off an attack identical to one All Might himself would use. But I had no time to mull over these thoughts much. I had to improve fast enough to prove I was worthy of All Might's trust in me. He may have said otherwise and told me I needed to rest so I wouldn't burn myself out, but I needed to prove it to myself. More than anything. And on the day of the entrance exam to UA I had done it. With a shout as I finished with the last pile of garbage to be loaded on the truck, I heard All Might exclaim, "Holy stinking super crap." And once he came up to me, he told me, "Look at you. This was you 10 months ago and now look what you've accomplished and built for yourself. You are more than ready to inherit my power." When I told I felt so lucky for this chance, he responded with a simple statement: "There is a difference between being lucky and deserving. One is an accident, the other is because you have earned it." As I was crying at this, he proceeded to pluck one of his hairs and then said, "Now eat this." And thus, all my expectations and frankly everything I was expecting for gaining the greatest power ground to a halt. While this was happening, and All Might explained that you needed to have the previous holder's DNA to mix with a new holder by eating it to transfer, a pair were watching over both of us from the tree line. Once I had eaten the hair and All Might said it would take a few hours to digest and gain it, that was when they called out, "No POV. So, you're just gonna send him in kinda blind to try and figure out how this works and haven't considered how he can fight at all, have you?" Izuku and All Might hear from the tree line and see the young dark-haired man that talked to them about the problems of quirks and the society they built over 10 months ago. Not much had changed with the young man, his hair a bit longer, his clothes seemed somewhat tattered, and he stood taller than before. But the dark shirt, sunglasses, and boots were the same as were the blue jeans he was wearing. As All Might is freaking out about the prospect of someone else knowing more about One for All, the young man calms him down saying, "Relax dude, I've got my own set of secrets. And as dumb as the general population usually is, do you really think they'd even believe me if I said anything?" With this statement given, All Might asks the big question that has been on his a few other heroes' minds: why haven't we been able to find you or your accomplice down? Seriously, look at me, I'm not that overly descript to begin with. I may be a bit tall compared to most from Asian regions, but even then, I'm not overly flashy with how I do things like you. Hardly anyone would look twice at a tall guy with dark hair. Izuku pipes up next saying that, he has a point. Even when he unleashed that big punch like you would do, he didn't call out a name of an attack or anything like that. And it wasn't like too many people got good footage of that whole incident. He could just hide easily in the crowd. All Might shakes his head in resignation and leads with, "Fine, but what are you doing here? And with what you said, it isn't like I really have enough time to teach him enough to use my power properly. The exam is this afternoon and he still has to wait to digest and gain the power." Even with his sunglasses on, they can just feel the withering, "Really? Really?" look coming from the teen. He lets out a sigh and says, "What if we could give you a little more time to get a feel for what you can do?" "We," says All Might, but Izuku says, "Wait, do you mean that woman that appeared with you?" "Right," he asks this. They all hear a spectral, "Well, I'm not really a woman right now." And appearing out of smoke is an attractive teenage girl with blue skin floating in the air. She appears in what looks akin to a belly dancing get-up, showing of a well-toned stomach, as her medium-length midnight hair seems to absorb the light. Her appearance makes Izuku blush like mad, and All Might turns away out of trying to not look like a creep. The young man just sighs and says, "You're wearing that belly dancer get-up to screw with them, aren't you?" The girl laughs and says, "I couldn't resist messing with them. They're both just so serious," floating around and causing the parts of her costume to jingle and ring. While I don't disagree, and frankly their reactions are hilarious, let's tone it down so we don't seem totally crazy," he says with an eyebrow raised and playful smirk. "Oh, all right." The girl changes into what appears to be a red tank top with a black long-sleeved button-up shirt over it. Her lower half though looks as if she is wearing harem pants, with sneakers strangely enough. It is once she is done changing All Might finally asks the big question, "Who are you two?" With that the young man has a look that basically says, "Oh yeah, we never got that far." "Well, ladies first. My name is Saphantite." The young man snorts and retorts, "Really? And your name, young man?" All Might pointedly asks, to which he says, "My name is Jojo, son va bitch. You can call me Jotaro," to which Saphantite gives him an even more withering look saying, "And you laughed at my alias." All Might wants to keep pushing them, but he knows they may not have the time and he wants to know what they are after. "So why is it you want to help Izuku, let alone me? You seem to have a serious dislike for quirks in our hero society. So, what is in this for you?" All Might questions, to which the pair look at each other and the young man leads off. The kid has what is in his heart to really be a hero. Not just a fool who is chasing fame or glory, or like some of the dumb animals who want to play with their little tricks. He's not in it for himself but to help and save lives for the simple fact of saving lives. Jotaro says with a straight face, one radiating confidence and a straightforward mindset. While All Might has more questions, he does acknowledge the fact that they could both be here to help. "Then how do you intend to give young Midoriya the time he needs to grow into this? It's not like you can just stop time for just us." To this he sees Saphantite smile while Jotaro raises an eyebrow and grins saying, "Who says we can't?" While All Might is processing this, Izuku starts of a crazy mumble spree trying to figure out all he has seen and heard both unusual figures say. To which Jotaro gets in front of his eyes and claps to snap him out of it. Once that is done, he says to Saphantite, "So think you can do it?" She looks to him saying, "Well, the question is for how long and what are you expecting me to pull energy from to use this spell? I can't just plop a temporal field down willy-nilly and expect everything to work out." Jotaro responds matter of fact, "You can pull from my energy to make the field. And let's give him another 6 to 8 months to train. That way there isn't too much strain on me, and we can get in the training he definitely needs." Saphantite looks at him with worry saying, "Are you sure? It'll take even longer for you to recover if we do that." "I'm sure. I trust you and I know I'll be fine," he says with a small smile. Once this little moment has passed between the two, All Might calls out, "Whoa, wait a minute. Exclamation mark. Did she just say spell and taking energy from you? How is any of that possible?" Jotaro just smiles looking at All Might and says, "Remember what I told you before. There are greater things than are dreamt of in your philosophy and in your sciences. There is more out there than you know." With that said, Saphantite places her hand on Jotaro's shoulder, waves her hand creating a circle in the air and snaps her fingers making a white flash surround all of them. Once All Might and Izuku's eyes had adjusted after the flash of light the blue-skinned girl unleashed, they looked around and saw a hazy appearance to everything. The thing that shocked them more at one point was that they could see birds just outside the boundary, in mid-flight and not moving. It took them about 5 minutes to shake the surprise of seeing what they had believed impossible, even by quirk standards. When that was done, Izuku started shouting, "How is this possible? You both said you don't have a quirk. And as far as any science and study of quirks goes, no one has any kind of ability like this. Is it some sort of tech-based capability?" "No," she called it magic. "But magic doesn't exist, or does it?" Mumble. "So, are you gonna be lost in your own little world within this time-accelerated world for a while or what?" Jotaro asked with a bemused look on his face. This snapped Izuku out of it and he was able to focus in on the two unusual people who appeared to be helping him out. All Might, while still reeling from this impossibility, adjusted more quickly and brought up a problem to their current situation. Even if this space is accelerated, we will still need necessities. Food, water, a place to sleep or rest, a place to use the bathroom or wash up. How exactly are you planning to deal with that? Jotaro and Saphantite shared a wry smile before both pointed out, there is a literal genie in front of you. Depends on who is talking, can create food out of thin air. Pointless stuff like logic, reason, rational thought and perspective, even physics are worthless to both of us. To illustrate said point, Saphantite waved her hand and created a plate full of sandwiches. Normally I'd leave the cooking to Jotaro since he likes cooking and is pretty good at it, but we're pressed for time, and we need to get started. Though she is limited in certain ways too. She can't warp or change reality too far. Nor can she just make whatever you wish for happen anymore. But small stuff like making food or a structure isn't hard at all and doesn't have too many long-lasting issues. Right, so Izuku, we'll keep this simple for now. You and I are gonna fight for a while. Jotaro says. While Izuku on the other hand has a completely freaked out look, shouting, "Wait. What?" Jotaro smirks before saying, "You need to first figure out how you want to fight or what feels right for your body first. Having a power is great and all, but it doesn't equate to knowing your own body and the way you can fight best." As Jotaro is saying this, takes off the outer shirt he is wearing. Even though he is wearing a t-shirt under, the shirt is tight across his chest and shows off the impressive muscles he has. Izuku feels too intimidated to move, so, "If you won't make the first move, I will." And with that, Jotaro rushes at Izuku, going for a punch to the face while smiling. Izuku dodges in time, but just barely. He had not only been intimidated by Jotaro's size but the bit of killing intent that seemed to be coming from him. Good. Even though you were scared and probably a bit overwhelmed, you still found the strength and courage to move. That's one of the best starts we could have in this case. Jotaro says with a more relaxed smile rather than the look of bloodlust before. Now, I'm not gonna attack you again. Instead, you are going to come at me with whatever you've got or can imagine up for an attack. And I won't hit back right away. I'll just dodge or block instead. Izuku is confused by this statement and asks, "Wait, why are you not going to be fighting back? You need to get a better feel for how you want to fight, like I said. To do that you have to fight on your own merit and with whatever skill you think you have. And no, this has nothing to do with power or anything like that. People can fight without something like that and have for millennia. So, for now, try and throw punches or kicks that feel right." And with that, Jotaro takes a stance with his right foot behind his left and his left side to Izuku, who in turn clenches his fists and gets a rough boxer-like stance. While this is going on, Saphantite has created chairs and a few other amenity-like places for when Izuku and to an extent All Might get tired. She and All Might are currently sitting on chairs she created and watching while the other two spar. After a few minutes, she asks All Might a question that has been bothering her. "Surely with the meta abilities that everyone is so proud of, they should have been able to heal you. So, why are you stuck in this emaciated state?" He sighs and looks to her with a bit of resignation. "Even with the best healing quirks and the surgeries I've undergone, they couldn't heal me back to full. It's pretty hard to replace a missing stomach and badly destroyed lungs." He looks back to the boys sparing and contemplating what is to come. "Not just due to my injury but also the fact that I'm getting older. Sooner or later, I will have to retire. And when that day comes, I'll have to entrust the future to young hopefuls like young Midoriya and even young Jotaro. You two only gave what I'm guessing are your given names, not your family names. Oh yeah, that is more of a thing in Eastern countries. We'll talk about that later, but, really, the silly superpowers you are all so proud of haven't helped advance medical science enough to where you can clone or recreate organs that have been lost. Let alone just going with a transplant surgery can't help you. Saphantite asks while pinching the bridge of her nose in annoyance. Okay, you know what? Once those two get done with their sparring for a while, we'll fix you up. All Might, while she is saying all of this, has a shocked look on his face, and, once she's done ranting, he says, whoa, wait. What? How can both of you help? I get you're a genie, but you even said some of your power is limited. And I thought his power was just some sort of super strength. So how can he help heal someone? Saphantite just gives him a deadpan look. First of all, just because my power is limited doesn't mean I can't create the cells that would make up your stomach and lungs. And second, why would you assume a metahuman's capability is so simple in one note with their power? Or only has one base ability? All Might is a bit taken aback but explains, well, that's how quirks are, for the most part anyway. A person with a quirk only has an ability that in many cases is very simplistic and straight to the point and have minor resistances. Let alone the fact that there are often drawbacks to the powers. Like for a pyrokinetic or cryokinetic, they could either get frostbite or burn up their own bodies if they overuse their power. Others may have issues like overloading their brain if they have an electric quirk, or it can only be used from a certain part of the body or with specific equipment. Even mutant type come with a few issues and drawbacks to how they are used. It's just how quirks are. Midoriya in his case must worry about the recoil from throwing a punch because the power is too much for most anyone to handle. Even just the average person will have a simple ability like extending fingers, glowing, making your hands like stone, etc. Saphantite's face can't get any more deadpan as she facepalms and shakes her head. Okay, putting aside the greater stupidity of everyone having completely worthless abilities they shouldn't even want. Or rather need because they all seem like garbage. I'm going to guess you, even though you didn't have a power yourself, didn't have a problem with the recoil, did you? No. How did you know? She floats up and grabs a few drinks from the fridge she created and hands one to All Might. The way you went about describing your power that you passed to him. My guess, your ancestry granted you with stronger bones, muscles and ligaments compared to most Japanese. Given the hair color and your build both buffed up and like this, you more than likely have some Euro ancestry. Probably a family member who was from the States or something. Wait, how did you? She cuts him off with, not important right now. Right now, we need to focus on fixing you up and getting Green Bean there ready. Speaking of which, the boys had stopped sparring, with Izuku breathing heavily while Jotaro looks like he hasn't even broken a sweat. Okay, looks like you have something of an idea on how to fight now, let alone how your own body wants to move in a fight. We'll take a break and rehydrate you. When the two reach the rest area and have gotten some water, Saphantite mentions her plan and idea to fix up All Might a bit. Probably wouldn't hurt to do. And I'm guessing you want to use my gamma energy to stimulate the cells you'll recreate, right? Whoa, back up a bit. Did you just say gamma energy? As in gamma radiation? Are you crazy? That would kill me. Both All Might and Izuku are freaking out at that prospect. Especially since they are talking about Jotaro using gamma energy and he just spent a few hours sparring with a guy powered by radiation. Okay, calm down. It's not exactly like that. It is true I can use gamma radiation and it can kill. But depending on the frequency of the radiation, it can also stimulate cell regrowth. Jotaro holds his hands up in defense and explains. While they were talking, Saphantite has set up a table for them to operate on. Good, we're all set up to work, we just need you to take off your shirt, All Might, and we can get started. Don't worry, we've done this before. Even to ourselves. Well, me more so, she doesn't have to worry since she's a genie. With a sigh of resignation, All Might lies does just that. But he stays ready just in case they do try to do something that would kill him. He isn't sure he can take both of them down, but he has already passed one for all to the next. He can still bet on the next holder to carry on his hopes and will, as well as become the next symbol of peace. With a wave of her hands, Saphantite starts a spell around the wound and the other areas that All Might mentioned were damaged from his fight. While Jotaro can't see the parts where she has reformed the old cells, he can sense the start of the change. As well as something else that even All Might isn't aware of. So, he channels his healing gamma wave, in small amounts, to those areas. The resulting gamma energy, and a few other energies moving through him, restores not just All Might's organs but brings some life back into his eyes. While he won't be the same as he was, no bringing him back to looking like his two heroes self, he can breathe properly again and he can even feel his stomach. And how empty it is. When he stands up from the table his hair is still down, but rather than looking like a skeleton, he looks closer to his buffed up hero self. Try to imagine a happy medium between the two forms. He can even tell he's regained some of the time that had been dwindling away. He could be in full hero form for at least 6 hours. And even without One for All, he is still stronger and in infinitely less pain than before. Well, glad that worked. How are you feeling? Saphantite asks, and then suddenly All Might grabs her and Jotaro into a big hug, thanking them profusely. I believed I had lost everything. I was stuck at feeling like I was becoming useless. But you've both pulled me up and helped me recover. Thank you. Thank you so much. Jotaro just smiles and looks warmly at Saphantite. She has both a good and bad habit of pulling people back from the brink. My sarcasm has rubbed off on her over time, but she's still quite the optimist. Izuku can't believe what he has seen yet again. These two strange people have managed to buy him time to learn more and have restored the symbol of peace more than any doctor he has seen in their world. But before he can start in on questions, Jotaro tells him, it seems like that power he passed to you has settled in. Now we can get started on some real training and understanding. He cracks his knuckles and heads back to the spar area. Let's get back to it. Back in real time, the whited out area on Dagoba Beach disappears after about an hour. And once it has, the four emerge. All Might in his medium might form, Izuku looking a bit bigger and stronger than when he went in, with a bit more confidence and heart than before, and both Saphantite and Jotaro looking pleased with themselves on having helped both. Before they left the zone, the unusual two told All Might and Izuku that they will also be taking the UA entrance exam. With Jotaro saying, there's still a lot I can help you with. And I want to see how you can grow. Besides, it'll get those jokes who call themselves heroes off our backs if we go through some of the schooling. Even though technically I don't have a quirk, they still want to arrest me based on their pitiful narrow-minded arrogance. Once he had said that though, Saphantite smacks him over the head for that rather rude statement. Hey, I know about your opinions on a lot of this warped world of quirks, but there are way too many times that you pretty spiteful. So back off. He sighs but relents with, alright, I'll lay off a bit. But if there is some asshole who pisses me off too much, it's on. Saphantite pinches the bridge of her nose saying, yes, and when that happens, I'll remind you again. After what felt like 6 months of training together, Izuku and All Might had gotten used to and were constantly amused by the other pair's interactions. But they had no more extra time to waste. The UA entrance exam awaited them. And that is where I will leave it for now. I know what some of you may be thinking on giving Izuku an extra 6 months means that he could unlock some more of his potential sooner. And that is the point. The fact is, due to All Might not really understanding much more the symbolism and transmission of OFA, he doesn't have a clue on how to instruct in a lot of ways. My OCs will be helping in a few ways with that. As I walked up the slope towards UA, I couldn't help but feel a swell of happiness and pride that I had the chance to do this. It was made even more possible thanks to my two newest friends, Jotaro and Saphantite. I know their actual names now, but even though I know their true names, I'll probably stick to calling them by that. Habits die hard after all. Move your ass over, Deku. Speaking of which, Ka no Katsuki is still the same. Yeah, those extra months helped with a few other things, including realizing that I can't keep using him as a yardstick, especially with what Jotaro showed and told me about heroism. He helped me to realize that the idea of winning isn't as straightforward as Katsuki likes to think it is. Plenty of room to go around, you know. After saying that, he has this shocked and of course angry look on his face. Why you worthless? He readies to strike me, but I'm ready for it. Or I would be, if Jotaro hadn't grabbed the hand he was going to strike with and says, "Hey dumbass, how about you save it for later? Not like you deserve to be here anyway." He turns around to lash out at whoever grabbed him but is a bit intimidated by this 6 feet tall brick house who stopped him. As such, he does the only thing his short-fused self can think of, he lashes out at Jotaro. Dumbass moment if I ever saw it. Who the hell do you think you are? He lets off an explosion point blank at Jotaro, and it does nothing. He doesn't even flinch and there's not even a single mark on his clothes. To which he just responds, "Are you finished with your temper tantrum, little baby?" And of course, Katsuki is dumbstruck that his almighty quirk was completely useless. With that done, Jotaro lightly, especially for him, tosses Katsuki away. "Remember what I said, fool. Save it for later. Otherwise, you'll find you have different issues to deal with." With that, Katsuki huffs and basically stomps away like a kid told to go to his room. Whoa, that was kinda intense. We both look behind and see a cute girl with brown hair, a permanent blush to her cheeks, and brown eyes who had apparently seen the whole thing. I was a bit dumbstruck that a girl would talk to me. I may have gotten used to Saphantite, but she is a bit more different given what we've been through. Jotaro takes a moment and elbows me back to earth. Yeah, we have a history. He's strong no doubt, and his drive to be a hero isn't bad. His big problem though comes from letting way too much praise spoil him. Well, he'll probably get a wake-up call about it sooner or later. Jotaro says first, then looking to the girl, "So what's your name?" The girl is a bit surprised by the bluntness of the question and answers, "Uraraka Ochako." "What about you two?" I'm stumbling a bit, but I manage to get out, Midoriya Izuku. And of course, Jotaro has no problem saying, "Jotaro Swaboda." Just FYI, I used my given name first. And good luck trying to pronounce my family name. It's Czech, not German or English. Uraraka seems a bit off-put at his statement, not to mention his way of referring to himself. Or maybe she's just a bit unsure how to go about it given not only what he just said but also how to pronounce his last name with a Japanese accent. Jotaro may speak fairly fluently but he still peppers a lot of other languages in when he talks. Okay, Jotaro-kun and Deku-kun. I'm a bit surprised by what she said, so I correct her gently, "Izuku, please, or just Midoriya. That guy only calls me that as an insult. Because my name can also be read as useless. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was like Dekiru or I can do instead." She backpedals and gives a decent reasoning, so I take a bit to calm her down saying, "It's okay. Not too many would find a positive spin for an insult, so thank you." We both blush a bit and I'm honestly hoping the conversation can go a bit longer, but Jotaro brings us back to reality. "If you two want to get to know each other more, maybe save it for after the exam. Come on." And with that we both realize he has walked off and follow his lead. The exam itself isn't too hard. Saphantite made sure I could keep up my other studies. She seemed to appreciate my more analytical approach to things. Jotaro can figure out what a villain's plan is and can come up with a few ways to stop it, but he doesn't often think of a whole strategy. Though I think most of that is due to the generally overwhelming physical advantage he has. Not too unlike All Might. But once that was over, we all went to the auditorium for the overview of the mock battle exam for the hero course. Part of me wanted to geek out about Present Mike giving the explanation, but I kept it in. Once the base explanation was done, a tall student with glasses stood up with the question of what the fourth villain type was. But he couldn't just ask and started in on a spiel about duty and a few other things. Before saying to Jotaro, "And you? Why do you have your feet on desk? Are you disrespecting with exam and what it stands for?" While I was afraid Jotaro would go off on the guy, he kept his cool and retorted back, "And do you realize you're an obnoxious blowhard?" In case you hadn't noticed, Mike was getting ready to talk more once everyone had absorbed the base rules for the exam. And second, did you even notice how big of a scene you've made? Between that ridiculous rant earlier and calling me out, you've literally dragged all the attention to you. You doing this just to be famous or say you're gonna be the #1 hero? 'Cause if so, I think you've got the wrong idea about a lot of things. Before the bespectacled student could respond, Mike spoke up. All right, that's enough, listeners. Now you both bring up a point, because yes, I was just waiting before continuing my explanation. However, neither of you needed to call each other out. The fourth type of villain is just an obstacle, like a thwomp in those old Nintendo games. It is worth 0 points, so it's often better to just avoid it. With that explanation done, we each looked to our numbers for the battlefields. Now all you listeners go to the buses to take you to your battlefields. Break a leg out there. I was heading to Site 2 while Katsuki was headed to Site 1. Before we headed out, I could see Jotaro smiling a bit, and I had a very bad feeling that a lot of people were gonna be upset. But I couldn't worry about that now. I had my own exam to get ready for. At Battleground Beta the first saw Uraraka there as well, but I also saw the glasses-wearing guy too. Given the engines in his calves, I guessed he was probably a speed type of hero. As I passed Uraraka, I told her good luck, and just as the exam was about to start, I calmed my mind and thought back to those moments in the time bubble. Flashback. Izuku laid crumpled on the ground with 2 broken legs and a broken arm, barely conscious. Well, that isn't entirely surprising, All Might said. Though his explanation at how to use it had been helpful to a point and Izuku had bulked up enough to not blow up his body, it still wasn't overly helpful for the long term. And that is precisely why I wanted to give him a bit more time. Also, would this have happened to anybody who you transferred this power to? Well, probably not you given your capabilities, but yeah. All of the previous holders of One for All had to dial in the amount of force they used or they'd break their bodies. Even through the sunglasses you all but see the annoyed look on Jotaro's face. Ah, all the more reason to question why all those idiots think quirks are a good thing. Okay, I'll help with healing as well, and then we'll work on figuring out how to dial in the power. I'll admit I'm used to limiting myself on how much force I unleash, but not for that reason. As Izuku was being healed by Jotaro and Saphantite, All Might saw his eyebrows raise at point during the treatment. At a meal the three had later, a few, by their experience, days, he questioned what surprised him. Oh, that. Yeah, he's more like you than you'd think, All Might. I'll explain more later, but both of you have much more potential than you believe. For now, we need to fully help you figure out how to use this quirk power of yours. He set down his spoon and had me come to a different spot than where we usually spar. During the few times you've been sparring with me, Safi and All Might, it seemed like you had managed to find the limit you can unleash at once without hurting yourself. Though it seems like you are only using it in parts of your body. Wait, how can you tell? Izuku asked. I can sense energy, and it feels like you are just opening the floodgates in parts of your body. You're trying to release all the flood at once from a single gate, which is where the recoil comes in, or breaking the dam in want to continue the analogy. Luckily, you've figured out your limit, but you still keep using just parts of the dam. Then what do I? Wait, parts of the dam. Floodgates. Izuku started into a shorter mumble spree that ended with, that's it. Saphantite looked at him confused and asked, what's it? You're right, I'm only using parts of the dam to hold back a river. Instead of opening just one floodgate, I need to open them all with the same small amount. With the explanation done, Izuku did just that, spreading the power he felt before across his body. There was a crackling of energy all around him. Well now, I knew you figured it out, but I wasn't expecting this. Can you hold it? I don't know how long. Jotaro smiled and said, we'll work on extending later, for now just get used to the feeling. Over time Izuku figured out how to hold the state longer and took to calling it full cowling. All Might gave him a thumbs up at the name, but the other two rolled their eyes. Jotaro later had Izuku focus on meditating while holding the power. He later revealed he meditated to better limit and feel out his power and how much he could use. This would help Izuku in various ways later. Flashback end. Izuku started gently breathing and started the power of OFA running throughout him. A few other examinees thought he looked stupid standing like that, but others noticed a calm focus that had appeared on his face. The second the doors opened, he rushed forward, engaging a few one-point bots. While the others were still processing things, Present Mike shouted over the intercom, there's no countdowns in real life. Get moving. The green kid is already racking up the points. As Izuku was running through the battlefield looking for targets, he noticed a few of the other examinees' quirks. The first that caught his eye was a boy who fired a laser from his stomach. And just as he had figured, the glasses boy was sprinting around at high speed with his engines. Uraraka surprised him somewhat, as she seemed to be lifting the robots and making them crash down. All the while Izuku was racking up point after point. Okay, that's around 60 or so. I'll get a few more then. Suddenly he felt a rumbling throughout the battlefield and saw a huge robot rushing through. Are you kidding me? That is supposed to just be an obstacle. I better get clear before. Ow! Izuku turned and heard a girl cry out. It was Uraraka. Her leg was pinned beneath some rubble and she was right in the path of the 0-pointer. That's when Izuku's legs just started moving on their own again. He rushed past the glasses guy with a determined look. When he got to Uraraka, he got the rubble off, but there wasn't time to run away. So, he did the next best thing he thought of. He pushed most of his power throughout his whole body and punched the 0-pointer so hard it fell over backwards. Even though he had used most of his power, the recoil wasn't as bad as it had been the first time he used it. In fact, he felt some of the damage healing a bit, but he wasn't sure how. Didn't change the fact he was falling faster than he could heal. He was about to throw a punch that could soften his impact when, slap. Uraraka slapped him across the face and removed his gravity. As he got closer to the ground, she released the weightlessness she had been maintaining. And promptly threw up. Once that was done, the youthful heroine recovery girl showed up and healed Uraraka's ankle and was about to help Izuku when she noticed who he was and that he had started to heal a bit. Interesting, dearie. You're healing yourself without having to think about it. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, Izuku stated while he laid on the ground. He couldn't stand, but he was at least conscious. Well, I'll help you finish what your quirk had already started. She proceeded to kiss Izuku's cheek, and his limbs healed. But he wasn't exhausted. Tired or winded might be better to describe it. Which surprised recovery girl. She was not, however, surprised by what he said next. Is Uraraka okay? Recovery girl smiled and said, she'll be fine. Now how about a gummy for you? It would be about a week or so before the results of the exam came back, but Izuku felt proud of his achievements. Both in facing the villains and in saving those who needed help. Even if it wouldn't net him any points. That's what a hero is supposed to do. Right, All Might, John, Sahira, he thought aloud while making his way back to the entrance of the battleground. After sniping back at that jerk who made a big deal about not everything being explained up front, I checked my number, and it had Site 1 on it. And when I heard that jerk Bakugo was also at Site 1, hey, well, this is gonna be fun. For one of us anyway. After we each got up to leave, Sahira caught me before heading to her bus. I saw that look. What look? I say, trying to keep a straight face and turning away from her. Don't joke around, John, I'm serious. What were you smiling about? And please just be honest. Even without seeing, I know she is looking at me with a mixture of both concern and a bit of disappointment. Not that the latter isn't unwarranted. Okay, I'm at Battlefield 1, and so is Bakugo. She sighs and has hem-haws around a bit before saying, don't try to sabotage him, okay? We both know he kinda deserves to lose everything here. But there is no reason to take away or cripple his powers or anything like that. Just focus on your own score. Okay, I'll hold back a little bit, but no permanent promises. And if I focus on my score, he probably won't be able to do anything about it or even keep up. He doesn't seem the type to stick his neck out for someone else. I can tell she's giving me a questioning look, so I explain, I'm betting there's more to this whole exam. And it's not just about taking down villains. Mike's explanation, the fact that he called it an obstacle more than an enemy specifically. The whole school motto of plus ultra and pushing beyond. More than that, if these guys and their tests are just about fighting villains, then that's no better than just training up a bunch of thugs. Which frankly is about what Bakugo seems to think everything of being a hero is about. She puts her hand under her chin and mulls it over before saying, that's probably the fault of the media, as usual. They're almost always garbage and only show what sells. I snort at the smart mouth she learned from me. Good luck out there, Sahira. I know you'll be a top fighter, but I hope you do it your way. And shine the calming light that you always do. I smile as I head for my bus. Even without looking, I can tell she has a content and happy smile on her face. Once we load up on the bus to go to the battleground, I can already feel everyone's eyes on me. Most are just looking at me as the guy who talked back to the glasses guy in the auditorium. But I know the most intense glare is coming from a certain angry Pomeranian. To which I just shake my head, and chuckle to myself. When we arrived at the exam site, everyone is getting ready with either sets of equipment to use their quirks still in dumb name or have changed into workout or athletic gear. Hey, while that is going on, I'm heading toward where the entrance is to get ready. Hey asshole, you, big guy with the sunglasses. Look at me. Yes, I am well aware that he is trying to get my attention so he can brag up or try to intimidate me. But I'm not giving the little shithead the satisfaction. I said, URG. And that's when he does the stupid thing, of course, because he's only book and somewhat fight smart, and he grabs my shoulder. To which I respond on instinct, by backhand punching him in the face so hard it sends him flying and bloodies his nose. While everyone around me is intimidated by that, I just look around and say, whatever. And with that I've pretty much shut him down on trying to assert his dominance, or whatever bullshit he wants to pull. He's not dumb enough to try and fight for the simple fact that the practical starts soon. Once I hear the doors to the city open, I sprint off. No one else is ready since most were still dumbstruck by my smacking the little shit like that. As I'm going through the city, I break almost every robot with a punch. I may not have my full strength, but it seems like they went with easily breakable bots. Probably a good thing. This is a school entrance exam after all. If they don't make it to where people can do some damage, with as weak as a lot of quirks are, then they won't get enough for the government to pay out for their training. Damn it, that feels all kinds of wrong to say. Ever since my powers awakened, I've never felt comfortable with the idea of working for the government by using my powers. I'll aid them in crisis, but I'm not working for them. Especially after what happened long ago. Anyway, I know I said I wouldn't sabotage him, but it's not really my fault that I happened to get most of the bots Bakugo is aiming for. At one point he was literally following me. He'd tried twice to pass me, but that led to him getting smacked by a bot. Clearly, he has a bad case of tunnel vision. After that though I happened, to break bots before he could. I think I've gotten about 64 points or so. Not sure, lost count after a while. But I also try to help a few others, though mostly those who miss that rubble is about to come down on their heads. Like this one girl who seemed to be throwing acid or something on the bots. Tricky ability is the flexibility she shows while attacking and dodging. Though it's not gonna help her when the top of a building is coming at her. An intriguing one was the short, and I mean really short, kid who seemed to be going more for stopping the villains with some sort of balls and hitting a button to turn some of them off. Not if that counts, but given the electrical energy I sense around, there's more than likely hundreds of cameras watching all of this going down. Then I feel something rumbling out of the ground. Given how big it feels, it is more than likely that 0-point bot that glasses guy wouldn't wait to hear about. I leap my way over towards it and I sense the strangest sight. There was a girl with very large hands a little way in front of it. She more than likely fell trying to get away from it. Don't really blame her or most anybody else who did that. Not everybody has as dense a body as I do and couldn't get up before it was almost on top of her. No, that isn't the strangest thing. No, the strange part is that the bot had stopped, or rather one tank tread had stopped or been gummed up. Tiny, despite seeming like a coward, had tried to stop or slow the thing with those things. It's not a permanent solution or fix, but it actually did slow it down. Not sure if he did it because of the girl there or if he did it just out of fear. Either way, he had the guts and heart to try, though he is apparently dumbstruck that it worked. 'Cause he's not moving. The girl yells at him to move and he seems to snap out of it. She also still tries to run, but I'm guessing she rolled her ankle. So, she can't move too fast. I got there just as the huge fist of the bot was about to crush them both. Though the big-handed girl has got plenty of heart herself. Shorty had the problem of too short of legs, let alone the fact he stopped after realizing what he managed. And I guess out of respect that he tried to save her, she picked him up and threw him out of the way as far as she could. When she sees that she isn't going to be crushed, she looks up at me and asks, "Who? What? How? Where? Is this really the time to be playing the random questions game?" I shout as she snaps out of it. "Can you hold it for long? I can't move very fast right now." I grunt and just say, "Or I can just finish this now." "Stay, or rather get back as far as you can. I don't know how badly this thing'll fragment once I'm done." And with that I shove the bot back with as much strength that I can muster while in this state, which makes it bounce back a bit. Then I finish it after ripping the big metal arm out and crushing it with its own arm. There is a bit of debris that falls towards her. She smacks the first few pieces away, but when the head starts falling towards her, she knows she can't stop it and braces for the hit. But when it doesn't come, she looks up and sees me holding the robot's head like Atlas holding the world. "I think, you, okay?" I asked with a smile directed her way. "Why yeah thanks, okay." Why is she stammering? "Hey, are you too, okay?" Guess short stuff has some more of the right stuff in him than I thought. Oh man, that was crazy. I just started using my quirk as best I could, I wasn't even sure it would work. And then, "Okay bub, hold it, I'm just gonna stop you right there before you finish that sentence." He looks up to me and asks, "What do you mean?" "She's attractive and fit girl, what's wrong with saying that?" I pinch the bridge of my nose, shake my head, not the first pervert who is trying to be a hero I've experienced, but still, and tell him, "Isn't there you should say first." He thinks for a second then says, "Oh yeah, thanks for the save." Or maybe it was a reciprocal save. "I started throwing more of my balls when I saw you fell." The girl sighs and says, "While I'm not overly appreciative of the whole just focusing on the fact I'm attractive, I do appreciate that you still tried to help even when you had no clue it would work." This seems to make him feel better about his chances, but before he gets the chance to say anything I say, "Yeah, even if it was desperate, it wasn't a bad idea. But next time don't be so overly surprised that it worked that you forget to keep moving." "Right," he says despondently. He perks up though and introduces himself, "My name's Mineta Minoru." "What's your name?" Pretty sure that was mostly directed to the girl, but he was smart enough to play it off. "Oh yeah, what is your name, big guy?" "I'm Kendo Itsuka." "Okay, I heard a little something different there from her, but I'll worry about that later." "You're gonna have to stick to calling me by my given name." "Pretty sure neither of you can pronounce my family name." "I'm Jotaro Dmitry Svoboda. My last name is Czech." "Yeah, okay, definitely can't pronounce that with the Japanese tongue," Minoru says rather bluntly, which is something I do appreciate. Tiptoeing around an issue doesn't help. Then I hear Itsuka in air as she tries to walk on her hurt ankle. The response group for the exams just got here, but they're a way off. "I can carry you both back so we can get out of here sooner." Minoru perks up and says, "Really? Thanks man." Itsuka looks down before saying, "Yeah, thanks for the help." Not sure why Itsuka said that in a soft voice, but whatever. "Alright, hop on my back, Minoru. I'll pick up Itsuka." "Wait, what?" she says as I grab under her legs and back. Minoru on the other hand got himself under my sweatshirt. When I ask why he did that, he says, "I saw how you leapt around the place earlier. I'm not taking any chances on falling off. So, I'm getting as close as I can." Fair enough. Hang on. I leap into the air high above the buildings that make up the mock city. After 2 leaps, we land back at the entrance where this old woman comes in and appears to be kissing some of the injured. "So, what's up with the old lady?" "Well, I never, young man." "Well, you can forget about me healing you up after that." I raise an eyebrow at that statement. I know she's lying, but she needs to set an example and say, "That's fine. I don't need it right now anyway." Itsuka here is the one who was hurt. Thinks she twisted her ankle. "Can you put me down now? This is embarrassing," she says while Minoru climbs off my back. "Wait, what was that?" I asked because I wasn't paying attention, to which she semi-violently exclaims, "Put me down," and then enlarges her fist and punches me in the face. I doesn't hurt, but it is annoying, so I say, a bit nasally, okay. Just relax. I'll let you down. Once that is done, Recovery girl kisses the Itsuka's ankle which heals it right up. But it is still a weird visual. Hey, good luck you two with everything. I gotta head out. I'll probably see you later. Minoru gives me a thumbs up and says, heck yeah man. No way they won't accept you. Itsuka on the other hand just says, yeah and hey thanks for the save and the help. I just smile and say, isn't that what we're all here to do? Or rather learn to do. Later. Saphantite POV. I know I shouldn't be worried about what John could do, but I'm a bit afraid of what he could have planned, especially since we know about Izuku's history with that Bakugo boy. Ah, never mind. Whatever happens, will happen. I can't change that part or what is gonna happen next. So instead, I'm psyching myself up and stretching out for this. I'll keep it mostly simple, some basic blast spells, maybe go into the martial arts I've learned. I'm of course gonna fly around, but even then, I know more battles take place on the ground than anywhere else. Mid-air battles are always messy anyway. Then I decided to change into something a little more comfortable for the fight. With a snap of my fingers, I change into a tight tank top with a sports bra underneath and a comfortable pair of sweats. I keep my sneakers though. Love the comfort of them. Whoa, that is a cool quirk. But is it really helpful for a fight like this is gonna be? I look over and see a young boy with shaggy black hair and shark-like teeth who is giving me a questioning look. Of course, I can tell he's looking at a few other parts of me more than my face. Though relative to a lot of the other guys and some of the girls too, he isn't too bad. More like he's trying to figure me out. I smile coyly and poke him in the chest, which makes him blush, and say, who says that's my only trick? That's when I hear Present Mike shout, begin. To which I turn around and fly off to find my first targets. Apparently, no one else is quick or smart enough to go because Mike has to follow up shortly after to tell everyone else to get moving. As I fly around I spot a few 2-point robots behind a building and blast them with a few spells. They break rather easy, but that probably should be expected. They are sturdy, but against those with a lot of different forces at their disposal, it's no surprise they can't hold up. While I'm flying around, I notice a boy who seems to be as tall as John is. He's doing some strange thing with his 6 arms. Okay, guess it's not the craziest thing I've seen. Then I spotted that boy who was asking how helpful my power was. I have to admit I'm a bit impressed. Not only at the damage he can take, but also that he can dish out a fair amount when he gets close. He goes a bit too forward in a lot of his attacks though. And he apparently doesn't look behind him. As he is about to be attacked by 2 robots, I blast them. When he looks up and sees me, the look of shock on his face is almost priceless. Told you I had a few tricks. I land and there is a 1-point bot coming at us. So, I take this chance to show off again. I rush at it, dodging its strike with an almost dancer grace and smash my fist clean through the head. And now he and a few others have to pick their jaws up off the ground. I roll my eyes and take flight once again. After a while I've gained quite a few points, around 65 points, when I see a huge robot appear out and start attacking the mock city. And, okay, honestly, I'm just a bit surprised at the amount of crazy to make this thing. Let alone unleashing it on a bunch of kids. But I guess if they couldn't face up to big threat like that, then and that is what he meant. He must have suspected that they would test whether someone would be willing to jump in to save someone else. I fly over and I see the 6-armed boy trying to help and protect. A floating set of clothes. Okay, this is just getting weirder and weirder. But he can't move fast enough to get away from it. I fly down as create a barrier to protect both of them as well as myself. But I have to admit, this thing's blows actually are pretty heavy. I can't hold this forever. Go. At that the 6-armed boy takes off, doing his best to protect whoever that is. John would probably be able to tell without asking. The part that makes me annoyed is that if I was at my full capability, taking this thing down would be easy. As it is, both me and John are stuck at low levels, like with a teacher system in an MMO or something. Damn, when was the last time I played a good MMO and, oh crap. Shouldn't have gotten distracted. That little bit of my mind wandering was enough to weaken my barrier and the bot breaks through. I know I'll survive the hit, at least I'm pretty sure. But then all of a sudden the shark-toothed boy comes out of nowhere, grabs me and throws me out of the way. And promptly gets smashed. Time's up. Present mic announces and the 0-pointer lifts its arm up and I can see the boy down in the crater. Just when I'm about to check to see if he's okay, he jumps up shouting, "I'm alive." Which does surprise me. "You are one crazy gutsy guy, you know that," I say to him with a smile. "Any injuries?" "Nah, I'm good. I can harden my body so I can take quite a lot of hits. However, I would really like to not go through that again," he says as he demonstrates his hardening ability. Well, that explains how and why he did that. But still I doubt he knew he'd be able to tank that huge hit. "Well, how about I give you a lift to the entrance? We'll grab the 2 I saved originally on the way." "Okay, but how will we all?" As he's talking, I create a magic carpet and pad next to me to get on. He does with some reservation, and once it takes off, he grips the edge for dear life. The 6-armed boy and the clothes aren't too far away and we fly down and offer them a ride. That's when I realize that the clothes are rather the person as a girl when she cheerily says, "Wow, really? And is that a real magic carpet or is it something to do with your quirk?" She's a bit of a bubbly girl, isn't she? Though her invisibility is weird. Like what she can't make other stuff invisible. It's just her skin. Oh, that's a bit of a rabbit hole. Pretty sure I don't want to follow it. To get my mind off of it I ask, "Anybody need a little healing?" "Oh, and my name is Safantite Anwar." The big guy speaks up first. "Yeah, I hurt one of my arms catching her after she fell. It's not a huge deal though. Someone else could go first." "Oh, my name is Shoji Mezzo." The invisible girl speaks up next. "I'm good thanks to you, Shoji-kun, I'm not hurt at all. And my name's Hagakuri Toru." The shark-toothed boy finally gives me his name by saying, "Well, you know I'm already okay. But my name is Kirishima Eijiro. Good to meet you, Safantite." "Oh, I forgot to say this earlier, but I introduced myself in the Western way. My family name is Anwar. My given name is Safantite. Though personally I don't really care which you use," I say with a beaming smile while I create some bandages to patch up Shoji. The boys blush a little, probably thinking I'm cute or something, and Toru pops in with the question, "Where are you from? If you introduce yourself that way, you're from the West, right?" "My dad is from Pakistan. That's where the last name comes from, and he was more comfortable with the first or given, middle and last or family naming convention." They all ooh at that, but I guess it is a bit of novelty for them since they've probably never met someone foreign. Once we land, they start to talk about how well they did. But I tell them I have to go and that I have to meet up with family once I'm done. "Hey," I turn and see Eijiro looking a bit bashful and he says, "I hope I'll see you in class." I give him another bright smile and say, "You will. I have no doubt about that. It's been a week or so since the entrance exam. I wonder if Uraraka was able to get a fair number of points. Her quirk was impressive, and it seemed like she managed to take out a decent amount of enemies with it. On the other hand, I wonder what my final total actually ended up being." "Izuku, it's here," my mom says before handing me the envelope. When I turned it on, it flashed to life with the announcement, "I am here as a projection." All Might announces when I started the hollow projector inside. But why is he doing this? I know you're probably confused, young Midoriya. But you see, I am going to be your new instructor in Heroics 101 at UA. Of course, given what I know of OFA now, he would have been looking for a new person to accept the responsibility and power. And where better than the top hero school that he's an alumnus of? What's that? I have more of these to do later. Oh fine. Anyway, on to your results, young Midoriya. You did quite well on the written exam and passed with flying colors. Now for the practical. Here it is. The bigger questions I have will be answered here. During the exam, you scored a total of 65 villain points. Wow, I knew I was in the ballpark with the number of robots defeated. But I didn't realize I had taken out quite that many. However, there are other matters when it comes to being a hero. A factor you know and showed quite well out there. After saying this, the projector cuts to images of me helping and saving others amid the chaos and when I charged in to save Uraraka-san. And then, I don't know how to describe it other than a parade of people praising me. Many of those in my exam group. They were talking about how I'd inspired them to try harder. Even a few who thought that I should get a few points for actually stopping the attack of the zero-pointer. All Might is shown again and notes that UA couldn't just ignore how a person could inspire such courage and heart. Thus we have the hidden part of the exam, rescue points. And with this, you have another 65 points added to your score. My jaw drops at that. I didn't just pass, I went above and beyond probably what most would have ever believed. Crap, now my eyes are filled with tears. As I'm wiping them, I see All Might leaning towards the camera. His hand extended and his same inspiring smile. Come young Midoriya, this is your Hero Academia. And the tears flow even more. Jotaro POV. After a week or so, I got a letter from UA. Technically it wasn't my exact address, just one I figured most wouldn't look too closely at. The part that was weird was that there was a hollow projector in the envelope. Okay, so All Might is giving these announcements of acceptance or failure. I get that he's a big name and face for the pro heroes in UA as well. But it's a little weird that he's taking the time to do this. In case you were wondering about why I am the one giving your score and whether you were accepted to UA or not, it is for a very good reason. I will be your newest hero course teacher. I'm even sure what to say that. But I guess it does make sense. Even if he didn't choose Izuku as his successor, he would have had a great crop of possible heroes to choose from to become the next him. Right, I know. I still have a few more to do after this. Anyway, young Svoboda, what do you know, he can pronounce my last name and not stumble over it during the battle trial. You racked up an impressive 65 villain points. However, that is not the only thing we grade for in this exam. Something of which you apparently realized him. This was the case of you stepping in harm's way to help two others you didn't even know. As such, we here at UA also have the hidden system of rescue points. Did he really need to say that with all caps? For not only saving those two from a terrifying situation, as well as helping a few others who got themselves into other kinds of trouble, we have awarded you another 65 points. Well, I'm never gonna complain about that score. However, due to a bit of negligence on your part, we have also docked a few of those points. We did catch that you said to get clear and didn't know how it would break. You still went about destroying the 0-point robot, and some of the debris almost hurt more than just the other examinee there. You know what? I am glad they did take that into consideration. I knew no one else was around for a way, but it's good they caught me on it. This is a docking of only 10 rescue points. However, some of the ones who pointed said matter out, did acknowledge that you acted in about the only way it would work at the time. So, with all of that out of the way, your total score comes out to 120 points. One of the highest ever recorded at this school. Welcome to your Hero Academia. Well, this should be interesting. Safentite Pav. Around the same time, when the envelope from UA came to my pseudo address, I was a bit curious on why they went with hollow discs for something like this. When I turned it on, the projection showed a woman in a flesh-colored bodysuit, with what looked like bondage gear around her abdomen and an unusual domino mask. Okay, really, is she supposed to be a hero? Between that look in her eye and get-up, she seems like she either belongs at a club or is a villainess who gets off from screwing with heroes. Hello there, cutie. You made quite the splash during the practical exam. And I don't just mean the little change and tease you did before the exam. They were watching as everyone was getting ready. That might have some repercussions for some. You managed to rack up an impressive count of 65, tying with the top score for villain points. Wonder who that was that took the top. Yes, that was sarcasm. But that's not all we worry about here at UA. One of the biggest things to count for in what it means to be a hero is the spirit of self-sacrifice. You showed that when you protected two other examinees as they were running from the zero-pointer. You held as long as you could, though there was someone who noticed that you got distracted. We all figured that was probably when your shield broke. But still, you held out long enough for someone else to get away. I grimaced a bit at that, remembering what happened. With that, and your other actions in helping others, we have decided to award you 50 rescue points. A few of us had tried to make a case for you getting more, but they got outvoted. Well, that figures. I can't blame them for docking me for getting distracted. If it had happened sooner, those two would have been caught up in it. Though to be clear, I was one of the ones who voted to dock your score. I've seen what happens if you get distracted at critical moments like that. But you'll learn from it. Congratulations, and welcome to UA. Not what I was expecting on who voted against me, but I am not opposed. After I was done with the letter, I opened the door and John was there. I could tell from that look he made it in as well. After a small smile he looks away towards where we trained Izuku. We need to go to Dagoba. We should check in with All Might and Izuku. And how do you know Izuku made it, let alone that they are there? He just turns back and gives me the, really? Look, oh right, I guess we didn't train him for nothing. Once we get there, we all talk about how we did and congratulate each other. Especially Izuku. He had tied with John for all of his points. And unlike both of us, he didn't get docked for other actions. After going over a few things and All Might revealing, at least to me, that he would be teaching at UA, we all went out for dinner to celebrate. Izuku had called his mom and she was happy to see the two of us. She wasn't sure how he had become so confident so quickly, so we just said we helped Izuku while he was doing the beach cleaning. After a fun evening of Japanese-style barbecue, you don't have to get snippy about it not being barbecue, John. Even if it's your hobby, we all went back to our homes. Things are gonna get interesting in a few months. Bakugo POV. I was pissed. Bad enough that damn Deku had a spine now and isn't even intimidated by me anymore. But that big guy basically made me look like a damn extra. I heard after things were done, he smashed apart the huge 0-point robot. What the hell was the point to that? Why waste time on something that won't raise your victory count? If anything, let some other extras get crushed by the thing so they stay out of the way. Anyway, that isn't important right now. I just got my letter from UA. I can't wait to hear how I took the #1 spot for the hero course applicants. I power up the holo projector, and I see some scruffy looking guy with a scarf. Maybe he's an administrator or something. Hello Katsuki Bakugo. I'm one of the teachers here at UA. Okay, that's surprising. Probably some no-rank extra hero. But you aren't here to hear about me. This is about your application to UA. You passed the written half of the exam with flying colors. Of course, I did. So how far ahead of everyone was I? For the practical though you scored 12 points. What? How? Did they mix mine up with Deku's or something? In case you're wondering, we have a few of the images during the practical to show you where you went wrong. Or rather just the fact you had a bit of bad luck. As it starts, I'm seething right now. How could they reject me? I'm the best. I'm the next #1. And that's when I see it. Right as I was about to hit a lot of the robots I had been targeting, that big bastard shows up and breaks them first. I had followed him for a bit to try and beat him. But that didn't go well, so I focused on other places and targets. How was he still taking out my prey when I was trying to avoid him? In case you were wondering about the other guy, he was bouncing around all over the place. Don't know what his quirk is, but a lot of us thought it was like All Might moving through the area. So yeah, you only have the 12 villain points. This can't be. This isn't supposed to happen to someone as great as I am. There one other thing though. I heard that and I'm sure he'll tell me I'm still in the hero course cause of how great my quirk is. Unlike that useless Deku with no quirk. We have footage from just before the exam started. We saw the altercation between you two. Ha, so, they'll be getting rid of him and I get in instead. Perfect. It's clear during that time you were trying to pick a fight. The other one was ignoring you, and when you got physical, he just reacted. One of our staff knows him and the fact he knows martial arts. All you were doing was provoking him and he just reacted on instinct rather than with any intent. I'm just floored by this. And the fact it seems like they won't be letting me in. With this we docked you 5 points. Some had suggested 10, but we figured it was best not to push it more. So, your final total is 7 points. 7 points. 7. That means I didn't even break double digits. I'm not gonna be in the UA hero course. Even though you failed the hero entrance exam, you passed well enough to get into the general education course. You have potential, but you need to learn to stop making everything a competition and just standing on top with intimidation alone. So that's it. This is how my great story stops. This is bullshit. You still have a chance when the UA field day comes around. Until then, keep up your studies. And hopefully you'll get a chance at some point. Good luck. For the first time in years, I just feel like I need to cry, damn it. Ajiro POV. Ashido called me and asked to meet up. I guess she got her a letter too. I hope I made it. It's not like I've got the flashiest quirk out there. But maybe I'll still have a chance. When we see their hollow projectors with a video, we decide to turn them on separately. Don't need the audio running over each other. Ashido goes first and present Mike as the one talking to her. He mentions that her written test needs some work, but she still passed. When it came to the practical, however, she scored 40 villain points. Though she did need to get saved at one point. Whoever that guy is, he's as tall as Shoji, and he seems a bit more manly and built too. But Mike is happy to say that she passed the exam, and she is going to be in the hero course. Anyway, now it's my turn. Present Mike is the one giving my review of my exam as well. I'm a bit happier at the fact I scored higher than Ashido on the written exam. Not by much, but still. After that is when they get into my villain points during the practical. I had lost count of my points during the battle, but I ended up with 39 villain points. Ashido was chuckling and saying that she got more points on that battle end. That's when Mike pipes up again saying that battling villains isn't the only thing we look for in an applicant. They have to be willing to do more. And that is what you showed here. With that, the image cuts to when I saved Saphantite from the 0-pointer. Ashido is having a mix of reactions, first telling me I'm crazy, then saying I was really brave, and then she gets this look that she has when she hears good gossip. And she starts grilling me about Saphantite. But that's not the part I'm focusing on. Instead, I'm focused on what Mike says next. You proved that you have what it takes. And so, we awarded you with 35 rescue points, taking your total up to 74 points. Hiroshima Ajiro. Welcome to the UA Hero course. Once the projection is done, I give Ashido a look of, you were saying. At the fact she scored higher than I did. She punches me in the shoulder playfully and asks how we want to celebrate. I suggested we go out for some good meat to celebrate. I had gotten my spark of a hero back before the exam. But I'm glad that I had managed to prove myself that I still had a bit of the manly spirit Crimson Riot inspired in me. I'll make a bit of a change, before starting at UA. It's my new school, and my new start. I know a lot of you will probably be annoyed that I kicked Katsuki out, but I have a long-term plan. Well, most of one anyway. But yes, most of the original cast will be in the same. I did also plan to remove one more of the guys since Saphantite will be taking their place. Since Shoji is sticking around, I'm currently stuck between removing Shiro, Kota, or Sato for now. This time I'll wait a couple of days to put up my next chapter this time. So please review on who you think should be removed. My original plan was to remove Kota. But the other two haven't had much presence themselves. At least Kota had a moment during the final exams. Do you have your handkerchief? Inko asks while her boy is running around the apartment. Yeah, I got it, Mom. Izuku says as he's putting on his shoes to go to his first day at UA. He was all changed into his uniform, his backpack on and ready for his next step to becoming the hero he dreamed of being. Inko herself was so proud and happy for him. Not only had he made a few new friends before the exam, but he had started on the path to his dream. A dream she had thought was impossible for a time due to the world they lived in. But he persevered and found a power all his own. Thinking back on and seeing him ready to go, she stopped him for a moment and said, "Hey, Izuku. You look really cool." "Thanks, Mom. I'm off. Time to get started on the path of a hero." As Izuku arrived at the gates of UA, he felt his heart swell at what could await him here. While he was staring at the building, Jotaro and Saphantite came up behind him. Jotaro looked a bit uncomfortable in his uniform. Am I the only one who feels awkward in this get-up? Yes, you are, Saphantite says with a smirk. In contrast, Saphantite seems to be enjoying the uniform. Though she may not want to float around too much with it on. Izuku on the other hand is smiling at his friends, and to an extent teacher, discomfort in the blazer and slacks. While they are all talking though, Izuku happens to spot Katsuki walking by. His head down and eyes shadowed as he walked on up to UA. Izuku knew some of what was going through his mind as he headed to the main building. It happened when their teacher had called him to the faculty office. Flashback. Congratulations are in order, Midoriya-san. You are the only one from our school to be accepted into the UA Hero program. When he said that, Izuku, with a surprised look, asked, "What about Katsuki? Didn't he make it in too?" The teacher upon hearing this had a slightly disappointed look on his face. His response was, "Unfortunately for Bakugo-san, that did not happen. He apparently got one of the lowest scores for the practical. As well, a bit of a disciplinary action against him for his actions before the exam." Izuku's eyes widened as his teacher explained that he must have been in the same group as Jotaro. Even if he didn't sabotage Katsuki directly, he earned quite a few points himself. The two of us did tie for the top rank after all. When his teacher saw his wide-eyed expression, he quickly said, "That isn't to say he won't be at UA. He was accepted into the general studies course. But for now, his plans for being a hero are put on hold." At lunch, Izuku was going to talk to Katsuki when he got a call from Jotaro. "I'm guessing your teacher told you about where Katsuki ended up at UA, didn't he? I know you want to help him, but now isn't the time. He's not ready or in a spot where your help will actually help him." As Jotaro was talking, Izuku was trying to catch up to Katsuki. "Then when will be the time? I don't know what he might do." "Yes, you do. You've known him your whole life. I know you know how he thinks for the most part. But this is coming from someone who has been where he is at. You must process where you are at or where you've fallen first before you can pull yourself up a bit. Once he's there, then he starts trying to find his way up." Izuku knew what Jotaro was talking about was his own history and experiences. When he was down, it took him time before he was willing to let Saphantite in to help him pick himself up. So, Izuku stops and realizes that he has a point. Katsuki has always fought or showed off his way through problems. He had never felt a major loss in his life, so this isn't like what happened when he told him to jump off the roof. Izuku had been down his whole life, but this is the first time Katsuki has really been knocked down. He knew Katsuki would find something to grab onto eventually. One part might just come from the UA Sports Festival. There was always a rumor that other departments could get the chance to move up if they performed well enough. And knowing Katsuki, he'll show them what he is capable of there. Flashback end. While Izuku is watching Katsuki walk by, he is very tempted to talk to him. You can't go talk to him. Not only is he not ready, but coming from you or me or anyone in the hero course, it would just feel like he's being insulted. And we both know how badly he reacts to the idea of being looked down on, Jotaro says with a stern look on his face, though I'm not sure if some of that is from how uncomfortable he is in the uniform. Doesn't change the fact that I want to help him. It's part of what a hero does. Right, Izuku says with a small smile. To which Jotaro smiles back and says, right. He just needs a little time. The first big losses or a huge defeat is often the hardest, but it's the one everyone needs. Hey, if you two want to keep discussing this, I'm leaving you behind. They both look and see Saphantite flying a little ahead of them. The two boys look at each other with a smile and follow her lead at hustling up to the main building of UA. They finally find the classroom for Class 1A. Whoa, that's a huge door. Must be for people with gigantification quirks. Well, at least I don't have to worry about hitting my head. And at that you can just feel the deadpan, really. Looks coming from Izuku and Saphantite. When Izuku opens the door, looking around at a few different groups of people talking and others just sitting at their desks. Suddenly, the bespectacled student from the exam came rushing up to the three of them. Excuse me, I am Ida Tenya from Sume Private Academy. I wanted to ask you something. You knew or understood something about the hidden part to the practical, did you not? Izuku is a bit flummoxed by how close he was while asking that, but responded, no, I didn't know about that part. Though I think Jotaro did. At that, Ida looks up and sees the young man who told him off at the overview for the test. Wait, you knew about the hidden part of the test? But I thought, well, that I was just a muscle head, right? I prefer to keep people on the back foot about what and how I can do things. I may end up telling all about some of what I can do later. But yeah, I knew there had to be something more to it. If this place was just about training us to fight villains or just fighting in general, then it would be kinda defeating the purpose of becoming heroes. Not everything is about a fight. When Jotaro said that, you could tell that Ida was surprised at the reasonable explanation he had given. I see. It's clear I need to open my mind to more outlets and opinions of people. Let alone realizing my own shortcomings. Thank you, he says while bowing. While he's doing that, two others approach the group. Hey Saphantite, good to see you. Glad we're all in the same class. Ashido, this is Saphantite. She was that awesome fighter at my exam site. A red-haired boy says and introduces a pink-haired and skinned girl. Yo, I'm Ashido Mina, heard a bit about you. It's nice to meet you. Saphantite has a puzzled expression for a few seconds then goes, wait, is that you Eijiro? I didn't recognize you with that hair. When they all hear her say his given name, the other students all perk up a bit. Ooh, you two are at that step. Ashido teases Eijiro, who is blushing and trying to say otherwise when Jotaro says, it's easier first given our backgrounds. I'm from the States. And I'm originally from Pakistan. Also, I was never big on formality. While a few are processing or just chuckling at the exchange, Uraraka shows up behind Izuku and says, hey Izuku-kun. Jotaro-kun. Guess we're all in the same class. Yeah, glad to be studying with you. Izuku gets out with a light blush. We might want to move it before the caterpillar that could probably use a nap, a shower, or a hot meal gets too annoyed. When a few of the others hear that, they quiet down. Wondering what the heck he was talking about. Impressive that you noticed I was here. Let alone the other parts you mentioned. But yes, if you are all here just to make friends, I suggest you go elsewhere. Everyone looks and sees a man in a yellow sleeping bag, looking like a caterpillar, on the floor on a yogurt pouch. Most of you quieted down about 8 seconds after he said that. You all aren't rational enough. Is this guy in any place to talk? Most of the teens think. But Jotaro has a different thought. There's that pointless word. Rational. Doesn't mean shit to the two of us. Once the man has gotten out of his sleeping bag, he stands and says to them, I'm Aizawa Shota, your homeroom teacher. Now I want everyone to get changed into their PE uniforms and meet at the PE ground. This surprises everyone, including Jotaro, who was sure he'd be planning a long speech about what they will be doing. But he just shrugs and follows everyone else. Once outside, he explains what they will be doing there. We're having a quirk apprehension test. You'll be doing the same events that you would have during middle school. This time though, you can all use your quirks for the tests. Midoriya and Sabda, Voboda, how the hell do you pronounce that? Jotaro just sighs and steps forward with Izuku. It's Svoboda. SS is Vo, Bo, Da. I get that it's a different language from even English, but come on. Aizawa coughs and follows up with, yes, well, never mind that. You two scored the highest in the practical, tying at 120 points. After he says this, everyone is oohing and awing in the background. I know she scored a little less, but why not have Saphantite come up too? That is true, she scored 115 points, but that isn't why I called you here. I want you two to demonstrate with the softball throw. How far was yours in middle school SVO? You know what, Jotaro? How far was it? The large teen tilted his head to the side slightly before saying, yeah, we don't have those in the States. At least I've never taken these tests. But I'll still go first. I just have to stand in the circle and throw it with everything I've got right. Aizawa is just massaging his temples in annoyance at him throwing him for a loop again. Yes, just don't leave the circle. Jotaro just gave him an, okay, and stepped up. While he is doing this, Aizawa uses his quirk on him but is stunned when Jotaro still throws with such force that it breaks the sound barrier. After a few seconds, the reading comes back a few seconds later with 1,524 meters. Still gotta hold back a little bit. Aizawa hears Jotaro mutter. This gets under his skin, but he'll wait a minute. All right, Midoriya, it's your turn. Oh, and make sure you show all of what you can do. Izuku starts to sweat a bit. I thought I recognized him. That's Eraserhead, the underground hero with the erasure quirk. He can shut down almost any quirk if he's looking at them. I bet he heard Jotaro mention he has to hold back. I can't do that though. I'll use all I've got. But I gotta be smart about it. Izuku takes his stance and charges up one for all. While he is doing that, Aizawa uses his quirk again to negate the power. However, it once again doesn't work. Izuku sends the ball flying, also breaking the sound barrier. The machine comes back with a score of 872 meters. This all of course terrifies Aizawa, as now his power has failed against two insanely powerful quirks. After seeing both examples, everyone else in the class starts talking about how fun this is gonna be. To which Aizawa says, "Fun huh? Well, let's make it less fun. The person at the bottom will be expelled. As will you, Svoboda, if you don't use your full capability." "What do you mean?" Jotaro asks, mostly to get a rise from him. And Aizawa fires back with, "Don't joke with me. I heard you say you still need to hold back. You can't give your all, then you aren't cut out to be here." The others all look shocked at all three of the statements. Uraraka pipes up saying, "That's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair. Insane villains who are out for blood aren't fair. Heroes face danger like that every day. It isn't rational to think you can do this job by holding back. That's where the motto of Plus Ultra comes from. You push beyond." Jotaro just smirks at him and leads off with, "You ever think there's a reason a person has to hold back? And really, you're one to talk about rationality. I noticed your two freakouts when you couldn't cancel me or Izuku's powers." Aizawa grits when Jotaro calls him out for that. Meanwhile, Izuku is confused as to why his quirk wasn't cancelled out. He knows he got a quirk from All Might. Unless this is some of what Jotaro was talking about with being more like All Might. There might be more there than I thought. And what possible rational reason could you have for holding back? Well, I'm waiting. Jotaro just takes a deep breath, to which Saphantite tells everyone to back up and brace themselves and blows Aizawa back with an exhale. And then pulls him towards him with an inhale. By the time Aizawa has wrapped his scarf around a tree to brace himself, he's even more terrified. Then he starts feeling the ground rumbling. He figures it's just a small earthquake. Not uncommon in Japan, until he looks up and sees that the rumbling is in time with Jotaro's steps. He is literally stepping so hard he's leaving small craters and causing tremors throughout the area. Okay, I get it. Stop," Aizawa shouts as the windstorm stops and he's on the ground winded. Jotaro is still a ways away, but he feels his presence looming. "That is the reason I have to hold back. Also, just FYI, in case you are confused, I don't actually have a quirk." At this, everyone is stunned, Aizawa most of all. The top three of us at the exam don't. We aren't dehumanized by something as limiting and worthless as that. With that statement, everyone starts looking at Izuku and Saphantite too. The latter of whom is facepalming and thinking, "I should have known he'd do this. Izuku and I will have to deal with the fallout later." Izuku, on the other hand, is freaking out that he would say that. Feeling assured that he would be bullied again. Or at the very least ignored due to his insane power. Before everyone just starts freaking out too much, I just want to say sorry about how I phrased that. He struck a few nerves, and I lost a bit of my temper. I will say he's not wrong in that a lot of things are unreasonable or unfair. You can't count on most of those beasts to hold back or care about anybody but themselves. Also, this isn't about competing. Don't worry about our scores, focus on your own. And put the best you can. With that stated, everyone started to take their tests. Ochako managed the highest score on the softball throw with infinity. But Saphantite kept surprising everyone with all sorts of transformations and created objects and the like. For her softball throw, rather than turn into a cannon, a girl a little bit shorter than her did that. She instead turned into a railgun and shot the metal softball over 3,000 meters away. Once all the tests were concluded, Aizawa tallied up the scores. First place was held by Saphantite Anwar, with both Jotaro and Izuku tied for second. Jotaro took the higher scores in strength-focused exercises, while Izuku had more stamina for others. At the bottom of the list was Mineta Minoru, who did the best he could with his lacking physique and a quirk with limited applications. As he was freaking out about being expelled, Aizawa piped up with a simple, for the most part that whole last getting expelled thing, it was a lie. It was a rational deception to get you to put out your best. As everyone face faults at that, Yaoyorozu Momo says, I thought that was obvious that he was lying. Should I have said something? While everyone else is screaming in their heads that she should have, Jotaro is following with a different thought. He was only half lying. He's telling the truth that he lied to make them put out their best. But he wasn't lying about wanting me gone. Is that why you got pissed at him? Saphantite asks in his mind, though she already knows the full answer and doesn't disagree with why he was mad. Once all of that is done, the rest of the school day finishes up as if nothing happened. Though, Aizawa had to answer why there was a sudden windstorm and earthquake happening while he was giving his test. As things were winding down, a few of the others came forward to ask a few pointed questions. Ochako went first with, Izuku-kun. Do you really not have a quirk? Izuku panicked a bit but calmed down and led with, I don't really know. I didn't have any powers until the day before taking the exam. Jotaro had found me over a year ago and told me I had more potential than even I believed. He started me on a training regimen and eventually something woke up. There's a bit of the backlash you saw that with the 0-pointer and today I did still hurt myself. But I seem to have some sort of minor healing ability too. Whoa, really? What about you, Jotaro-kun? Toru asked with a pep in her steps, with a few others looking on and questioning the same. Yeah man, how can you do that without a quirk? The blonde electricity user Kaminari Denki queried. At hearing that statement Jotaro growls a bit before sighing and saying, do you honestly think quirks are the only thing that exists or matters? It's like literally the only thing most of you talk about. But to answer part of your question, no, I wasn't born with a quirk. An accident triggered my powers. Frankly, I think I've got a much better version compared to everyone else. I don't have a real recoil or limitation other than the ones I put on myself. Besides, what good is having powers if they just get in the way of your daily life? Or if they are the only thing that you use to define yourself? What's more, power should only be active or activated if it's necessary. Not just because you're born. While most everyone is looking down in resignation, Saphantite pops up with, did you bring everyone down so much? Toru, you asked me if the carpet I made was a magic one before, right? Well, that is exactly what it is. I'm not human so much as I'm a genie. Now before you all go asking for wishes, I can't grant them anymore. I'm a free, not bound genie. My powers are limited in a sense. Transforming isn't a problem as you've seen, but I can't create a lot of things. Other than that, I have a handful of spells to work with as well. Her cheery disposition and the way she goes about demonstrating gets everyone excited and a bit happier. Whoa, really? Genies are real. What is the craziest thing you can turn into? With that, Class 1A ended out their first day. As all the students were leaving for the day, Ida, Eijiro, Ochako, and Minoru joined the three quirkless students on their walk home. I'll include an extra explaining my reasoning for the middle drama in another extra chapter. But that is the quirk apprehension. I tossed a bit more of my dislike for quirks in there, but you'll understand a few other things with Izuku's immunity later. After the first insane day class at UA, the next few were downright boring. They were just the regular high school classes the average student takes every day. You could just hear the slightly annoyed statements of, so ordinary, as they took Present Mike's English class. He was more than happy to call on Jotaro and Saphantite, given they both were fluent in English. Saphantite also seemed to match equal to Momo in terms of intelligence. Between that, and the abilities both had shown, a small rivalry was growing between the two girls. That aside, Jotaro and Izuku were also enjoying a bit of the mundane classes. It was a bit of an improvement compared to the emotional roller coaster from a few days ago. Today, however, would be a change to that pattern. As today was the day for their first hero class. Suddenly Jotaro jerked up from his leaning position and then had a disgruntled look on his face. Izuku was confused at his actions until he heard it. The booming laugh of All Might, followed with the shout of, I am coming through the door like a hero. Well, that explains it. Izuku thought as All Might took the attention of the whole class. Whoa, it really is All Might. He really is a teacher this year. That's his Silver Age costume. So cool. Once everyone had calmed down a bit, All Might started Indeed, students. I am your new hero 101 teacher. Now then, one of the first parts of being a hero is. He pushed a button, and a set of cases came down from the wall. Looking the part. Inside these cases are the hero uniforms you have all submitted and will help you get into the spirit. Meet me at Ground B and we will get started. Once he was gone, they each took their cases and headed for the locker room. The only exception was Saphantite, who had stated to the costume companies, I just make my own. So why do I need you assholes to tell me what looks good or how I need to dress? And she gets after Jotaro for having a smart mouth. Jotaro waited until most everyone had left to finish putting his on. He had some cargo black and gray pants on with black combat boots. For his top though he did something he didn't want anyone else to see. He created an energy field around his chest and ionized the air, turning it into a skin-tight shirt with the Libra scales on his chest. After that he put on a gray trench coat and walked to meet everyone. Damn it, I can't form it as easily as I used to. Still, it's better than it was. Couldn't even make my logo over a year ago. As he's walking out, he hears everyone cheering. Up in the air is Saphantite, dressed in her usual harem pants, with a tight tank top that shows off her abs. For her feet when she is walking, she has on Tabi-style shoes. When Jotaro asks her about that she responds with a wink, felt more natural for where we are. Well, don't you all look cool? You're really shaping up for what the hero course is about. Once he was done and everyone had gathered, Ida spoke up asking, so this is the battleground where the practical exam was. Will we be fighting robots today? No, today we will be skipping 2 steps ahead, young Ida. Today will be indoor battle training. Most people do not realize that most criminal acts happen out of sight. Backroom meetings, drug deals, smuggling operations. For heroes now, we must take those matters into account as well. So, for today you will all be competing against one another as heroes or villains. Before the slew of questions would start, they were all interrupted by, hey. Everyone flinched at that, then looked to Jotaro. Momo was the first to ask, why did you shout, Jotaro-kun? Oh, I was just stopping you all before you bombarded All Might with questions. If you'd all wait a few seconds, you'd have noticed that he wasn't done explaining. At this a bunch who were about to ask questions flinched again and turned back to All Might. While he still had his trademark smile, he seemed to be chuckling and said, indeed. Thank you for the attempt, but you also distracted from the class as well. At this Jotaro made an URK sound and just nodded his head. Anyway, as young Jotaro said, I do have an outline for your battle trials. And to follow that up he pulls out a script. While both Jotaro and Saphantite have their eyebrows raised at that, All Might explains the details. The scenario is this. Villains have a nuclear weapon hidden somewhere in the building. The hero's job is to either find the weapon and secure it or capture both members of the villain team within the time limit of 15 minutes. On the other hand, the duty of the villain team is to prevent their weapon from being captured, which in this case all the heroes have to do is touch the weapon, or capture the heroes, or allow time to run out. Seems very American, is the thought on most of the class's mind after the description of the scenario. To the two from the West they just thought, which action movie did he rip that scenario from? With All Might having finished his lesson scenario, continues with saying, now to divide up the teams we will all be choosing lots. Each person will come up to the box and draw a letter denoting your team. Ida pipes up with a statement about if that is really the best way to decide, but Izuku corrects him with, it's not like most heroes always have a choice of who they work with. For most pro heroes, they often have to team up on the spur of the moment. Ah, yes, you make an exceptionally good point. Excuse my rudeness. All Might brushes this off and tells everyone to come up and pick their lots. With that done, the teams are as follows. Team A, Izuku Midoriya and Tsuyu Asui. Team B, Shoto Todoroki and Mezzo Shoji. Team C, Saphantite Anwar and Minoru Mineta. Team D, Tenya Ida and Kirishima Eijiro. Team E, Yuga Aoyama and Mina Ishido. Team F, Rikido Sato and Momo Yaoyorozu. Team G, Denki Kaminari and Kyoka Jiro. Team H, Fumikage Tokiyami and Koji Koda. Team I, Mashiro Ojiro and Toru Hagakure. Team J, Jotaro Svoboda and Ochako Uraraka. With the teams chosen, all that was left to do was decide who would be fighting who, and who would be the heroes or the villains. The first group up was Team A versus Team D, with the former being the heroes and the latter being the villains. With that decided, the teams split up to prepare and plan for their inevitable encounters. For Team D, Ida was inspecting the dummy weapon the two of them were supposed to be guarding. Paper match. That'll make it easy to move it around for when the heroes show up. Yeah, so your quirk is those engines in your legs, right? Mine is a hardening quirk. I can make my skin as dense and strong as stone. Eijiro said to get a feel for his partner. Indeed, I can increase my running speed greatly and magnify the power of my kicks due to these engines. Of course, our enemies are a bit of a conundrum. Eijiro tilts his head in confusion at the way Ida phrased that. After a second, he smacks his fist on top of his palm saying, "Oh, you mean you can't figure out Midoriya or Asui are gonna fight, right?" Ida flinches a bit at the dumbing down of what he said but agrees. Midoriya seems to have some sort of super strength. But he also has that healing factor. Even if you could hurt him, he might be able to heal right up. Asui on the other hand is a bit of a wild card. From what I saw, she seems to move around like a frog. Yeah, she seemed like a mutant type. The thing that I keep thinking of is what Midoriya said about Jotaro training him. Even through his helmet you can tell Ida has a funny look on his face. Eijiro explains that, we both know how crazy strong they are, but Midoriya seems different to Jotaro. While Jotaro seems pretty patient, he's got a temper and looks pretty quick to strike. Midoriya on the other hand seems like the type to think things through and plan everything out. I noticed after class he had a notebook that seemed like it had some details on each of us. Ida contemplates what Eijiro just explained and mulls over a few scenarios before discussing them with Eijiro. While they have been discussing how to fight Team A, they in turn have been discussing how to find and capture the weapon. So Midoriya-chan, any thoughts on how to deal with those two? I saw the notebook you were writing in yesterday. It was about each of us and what we can do, right? Yeah, it is. And I do have a few ideas, but maybe we should compare on what we can do first. Suyu puts her finger to her chin and thinks it over a bit. Good point. Well, as you may have noticed, my quirk is called Frog. I can do anything a frog can do. I can even stick to walls for a while. Izuku had his notebook in one of the pouches on his belt and began writing things down. He started going over a few things in his head before Suyu said, "So what exactly is your power if it isn't a quirk, Midoriya-chan?" This snaps him out of his mental rambling. So, he tells her, "I don't know everything, but my body seems to store the kinetic energy I either create myself or is exerted on my body. I haven't figured out how it all works yet, but it seems to fuel my healing factor, let alone the boosts to my strength. I think the recoil breaks that happen are due to my accidentally gaining more energy than I can handle at once." At least that is how we chose to describe it. And it isn't entirely wrong. OFA is like a battery that stores the power of each user. Jotaro only explained that it seemed like my body was being enhanced by kinetic energy. Still don't know how he can tell the difference between energy forms. So, you are kinda like a battery and your charge is kinetic energy. Izuku winces a bit at this description but agrees. But with that out of the way, he explains his plan. He has a rough idea where the weapon would be based on the size of the building. He tells Suyu to climb up the outside of the building to the 7th floor. The building is 12 stories tall, and even if this is not an entirely realistic scenario, the best option would be to get the weapon to a high floor, but not so high that flying heroes or ones who could land on the roof could get to it easily. While she climbs up the side, he will go through the interior and keep in contact. Both Ida and Eijiro wear heavier gear, so they should make noise moving through a level. I may not have super senses, but I've picked up a few things from training with Jotaro. Turns out Izuku was not wrong about the original floor they were on. However, Ida felt the need to err on the side of caution, and the two of them moved the weapon down a level. The problem was that they had made enough noise while they were moving for Izuku to figure out what they had done. He told Tsuyu to check the 6th floor windows and see which room they had moved the weapon to. He still ended up in a fight with Eijiro though. Even though he was trying to be as quiet as could be, there is no accounting for a can that just happens to be by your feet. Eijiro got the first hit with a shoulder tackle to the stomach. He thought he had Izuku down, but as he was getting up to start attacking, Izuku punched him in the chin. This threw him off long enough for Izuku to get in his stance. While they were squaring up, Tsuyu had found the room with the weapon, and she told Izuku discreetly. He said, "Right, let's do this," but this was so Eijiro wouldn't catch on right way. And when Izuku said that, "Eijiro, you got good spirit there, man. But it won't help you here." The two traded a few blows, before Izuku broke away toward where the weapon was located. As he heard Eijiro warn Ida, he stopped right next to the door where the weapon was housed. Eijiro saw it as a chance to rush him, but it was all a feint. Izuku caught and using a bit of OFA threw Eijiro through the door right at Ida. While surprised by this, Ida reacted quickly and rushed Izuku as well. But underneath his respirator, Izuku grinned. He dodged Ida's attack and said, "Go for it, Asui." Out of a corner of the room, Asui rapidly hopped to the weapon, securing it. Hero team wins. With that announcement, the fighting stopped. Neither side was injured, other than some bruising on Izuku and a black eye for Eijiro. Once they were back in the meeting room, and All Might was saying that Ida and Izuku were the top members in their battle. While some were questioning why he chose both, Momo brought her own insight. Midoriya built a whole plan for getting the weapon, even accounting for the possibility of it being moved. Plus, he made full use of his teammates' capabilities and the fact that the enemy would see him as the greater threat. Ida, on the other hand, was smart and cautious enough to guess that Midoriya would deduce where the weapon was. And he stayed behind to better protect the objective. All Might's sweat dropped and thought, "Wow, she is intense." Before saying, "There were one or two other points, but that was accurate, yes." With that done, let us move on to the next match. I'm skipping a few because we know how a few of them turn out. Think after the Shoto Freeze match and teams G and H fought each other. The next match is Team C vs Team E, with Team C being the villains and E the heroes. Saphentite starts by welding up one of the doors with her finger. While she is doing that, Mineta is unfortunately being Mineta. When she blasts him back with a spell, she tells him, "Are you actually gonna do anything, or are you just here to stare at my ass?" After shaking off the effects of the blast, he says, "Fair enough. Besides, I don't want to take another hit. The problem is that my pop-off balls are easy to spot. It's not like you can just camouflage them right. Plus, the two we are up against have a lot of offensive power." Saphentite thinks it over for a bit, then snaps her fingers. "What if we make it the obvious trap that fools them?" Mineta thinks over what she said and asks, "Can you make like a net that blends with the ceiling?" With a wave, she makes a simple one that should catch them. With that, Mineta starts throwing his pop-off quirk down one hallway. Even with Ashido's acid, it would still take a while to get through them all. And Aoyama can't fire that laser fast enough to get rid of them all. Hopefully anyway. Ow, this is starting to hurt. Maybe I need to work on strengthening my scalp later. As the pair thought, their opponents didn't want to go down the ball-covered hallway, so they went down the opposite side. While Aoyama got caught by the net, Mina skated or slid right past it. When she had finally melted through the welded-up door, she found nothing. Mineta had thought back to what Ida had done and asked if she could open the ceiling to take the bomb through. Just when Mina was about to backtrack, out of one of the boxes popped Mineta. He stayed behind at Saphentite's suggestion to catch the enemy off guard. And it worked, mostly. Ashido wasn't going anywhere for a bit, but she still punched Mineta in the face when he landed on her chest. The last match was between Team J and Team F. J would be the heroes and F would be villains. Ochako was still a bit intimidated by Jotaro, but she knew she had to work with him to win. He seemed to be looking up at the building for some reason. "So, I kinda know what you can do. Shish. Be quiet for a sec." Again, she was off-put by his abrupt statement. She was about to tell him off when he said, "Okay, got him. They're on the 9th floor, northwest side. The bomb is closer to the window. Probably hoping to slow down or drag out with some traps by the door." Okako is just dumbfounded by all the info he just dropped. She shakes her head and asks, "How do you know that? I thought your power had to do with just super strength." Jotaro shakes his head and tells her, "That's only one part of my abilities. I also have enhanced senses. I could hear them moving the bomb around and I can hear their heartbeats." "Whoa, I guess you don't really need me." Jotaro looked down at her and put a hand on her shoulder. He gave a warm smile and said, "You're actually a big part of the plan I have in mind. You can remove gravity, right?" She looks up at him and nods. "Okay, hop on my back and hold on. We're going up." After she has done just that, she expects that he will super leap them up to the top of the building. Instead, when he leaps it is much shorter. Right below the 9th floor and headed towards the wall. Right when she thinks they are going to crash into it, she sees Jotaro touch the wall and sticks to it. "You might want to remove your own gravity for now. I'll walk us to just below their window." She nods rapidly and uses her quirk on herself. But she also starts to feel nauseous from it. "Hold still," Jotaro says as he pokes a nerve point behind her ear. It isn't a full fix, but it does alleviate some of the trouble. After he has walked the two of them to just under the window, he explains the rest of the plan. "Okay, this will be where I really need your help. I know you can just float for a while, but get ready. I want you to remove my gravity, then wait just above the window. I'm going to push myself to the other building and jump hard enough I crash through the window. Hopefully, I'll be able to catch them both off guard and knock them out of the room. Once I'm done, you should be able to move in no problem and get the weapon." Ochako is a little surprised he came up with all of this on the spot, but nonetheless agrees. When Jotaro is on the other building, she can see him crouching so he can launch himself. When he does, the result is almost exactly as he predicted. Momo is the first one he grabs. He also ends up dragging most of the traps she had laid to slow him down with them. Sato, who had come in after hearing the commotion, gets caught in the mess as well. Though it's a bit awkward for Momo, mainly due to the fact that she is now sandwiched between both of the larger men. And they are all wrapped in some of the nets she was going to use. While this is happening and Momo is freaking out, Ochako floats in and grabs the weapon. Team J wins. Now we just need to get them out of that mess. When they all arrive back at the meeting chamber, the question of who the MVP was gets overridden by everyone asking how Jotaro did all of that with the wall walking. While he is initially trying to not tell, All Might gives him a stern look as if to say, "I'll tell them if you won't." With a sigh he explains it is, "One of my abilities is to absorb energy. That includes electrical energy. I can't throw lighting or anything, but I can put a charge through my body. And with enough concentration, I can basically magnetize myself to walls. But I don't use it very often." While this starts a wave of questions, Kaminari is the first and asks, "So are you like me and get shorted out when you use too much electricity?" "Think you missed the point that I said energy. Not just electricity. I can absorb almost any energy around. It's part of why I'm so strong. Due to solar radiation, my body is extra dense, and my muscles are ridiculously strong. Can we leave some of the questions for another day, please? Young Jotaro is right. You all have other studies to go over. Plus, you should all review what happened during today's matches. With that, have a good day, students. Remember, plus, ultra." And All Might dashes out of the observation room. He is still really cool. But seriously man, come on. Can you tell us a little more please? Kaminari asks. In his mind he's thinking, maybe he can both help me figure out how not to short myself out and see if he can help me get a date with Saphantite. Jotaro on the other hand is having none of it. "No, I don't like telling everything about my powers. Better to keep some things close to the vest." You heard him. It's not polite to badger someone about a topic they don't want to talk about. Ida says while basically pushing everyone out. Izuku catches Jotaro on the way to the locker room and asks, "You good? You seemed extra tense during the trial, let alone the questioning after." Jotaro sighs and quietly tells Izuku that it was harder than usual to maintain the magnetism to the wall. The day after the battle trails, Aizawa gave a quick overview of what he thought about each of the team's performance. For Team A, He complimented how they had planned matters out and had a relative backup plan. But he did have a problem with Izuku basically going at the mission alone for the battle, saying he should work with and rely on his teammates more. Team D had a good plan, but they underestimated their opponent and also relied on one member too much, the main one in this case being Ida. Team B was in a similar situation, Shoto. Team I, he just said that sometimes there is bad luck when it comes to a matchup. Team H also had the problem on relying mostly on Tokiyami to carry the team. Though he praised Kota for trying a few different creatures he was limited to. Team G, he praised the fact that they worked well together but told Kaminari to fix his short-circuit problem. Team C was praised for both setting traps and false leads to fool their opponents. E on the other hand had the fact they went too far ahead without an escape or backup. Team F, he said they had the same problem with a bad matchup. And Team J, in his mind he was freaking out a bit that this kid he can't shut down has multiple abilities, each a bit more intimidating than the last. But he acknowledged that they both pulled roughly equal parts of the plan, though still relying a bit more on Jotaro's capabilities. Once that was out of the way he told them, "Today you have another important task to do." While everyone was sweating and wondering what they were in store for. "Today you pick a class president." Everyone slightly cheered at that and a few were making cases asking to be made class president. Jotaro and Saphentite, however, were both just nonplussed at the matter. How is this an important matter? Then again, I went to a public school. We never really had these kinds of elections. Jotaro mulled over in his mind. As this was happening, Ida shouted above the others, "We should cast votes for who we think would be the best pick." "What voting? But we've only known each other for about a day. Everybody will just vote for themselves." A myriad of voices ring out with those types of statements. To which Ida states, "And that is why it is a good system. The person who gets the most votes will be the one everyone thinks can do the job." "Is that all right, Aizawa-sensei?" And Aizawa is just getting back into his sleeping bag. "I don't care just so long as you pick someone." Saphentite just thinks, how is this guy an educator again? But while she is doing that, Ida passes out slips of paper to write down their votes. Once the ballots are cast, Izuku sits at the head with 3 votes. While Momo and Ida tie with 2 votes each. While it is unanimous on who the president is, the vice president matter is different. Just as Ida is about to suggest that they re-vote for the 2 of them, Jotaro says, "Why don't you both just take the VP spot? And before you ask, just take a look at Izuku as is." While Izuku is standing up at the podium with a nervous look on his face, not as bad as the original look but still nervous. He's gonna need more people that support him. And frankly, you two are some of the best planners in the class. With his reason given, they check with Aizawa that it would be okay. Sure, why not? It should be fine. This time Jotaro along with Saphentite think, again, how is he an educator? With that done, the VP slot is held by Ida and Momo with Izuku as the president. As everyone is getting ready to leave, Aizawa stops Jotaro. "Can you come to Gym Gamma? There's someone there who wants to meet you." Jotaro is a bit surprised by this, decides to go along. "Oh, and change into your gym uniform." With an eyebrow raised as Aizawa walks away, Jotaro says to Izuku and the others, "Go on ahead. I'll catch up in a bit." With that stated, the ones who were waiting on him head for lunch. After Jotaro has changed and gone to Gym Gamma, which has a handful of concrete pillars raised up, he waits around for a few minutes before saying, "Okay, I know you're here. Can all 3 of you come out?" From behind 2 of the pillars come a young man and woman. The young man has shaggy black hair and pointed ears with a grimace on his face, and the young woman has periwinkle hair and wide happy eyes with a big smile. "Wow, how did you know we were here? I thought we hid pretty well. Does it have something to do with your quirk? How did you get so big? You're only a freshman, right? What's with the sunglasses? You're taller than Mirio and seem to be a bit bulkier. Okay, I'm just gonna stop you because if I don't, we're going to be here for a while. Now about you asking if I'm like Mirio, I'm guessing that's the guy behind me, right?" The 2 have shocked looks on their faces, but said person decides to break up the tension with a big laugh. "Ha ha ha, man, that is impressive. I had heard that your abilities were different, but to think you knew I was coming before I made my move. The young man, now known as Mirio, stands just a bit shorter than Jotaro and is a bit less bulky. His blonde hair is standing up in the front and has simplistic blue eyes. Anyway, I'm Tagata Mirio. This is Hado Najire and Amijiki Tamaki. We're known in the school as the Big Three, or the top students at the school. Jotaro's eyebrows raise at the mention of that, but he also has a different problem. I'm confused. Why did you want to meet with me? What could the top student have to do with someone who is frankly a bit of a troublemaker? Especially given what happened to Aizawa. Mirio smiles at that and says, that is a bit of why we are here today. Aside from the fact you have been a bit of a troublemaker, I'm here personally to show you that there can always be someone stronger. Again, Jotaro raises his eyebrow at that statement. So, what you want to fight or something? Mirio's smile increases again before telling him that he may think he has an impressive quirk, but it won't do much good against everyone. He then says the two of them will just have a quick bout and call it a day. At the mention of calling his power a quirk again, Jotaro is disgruntled. But he decides to go along with it. Mirio tells him to head out to a point where he feels comfortable. Once he says he's at his spot, Mirio waits for him to come at him. However, Jotaro doesn't move. Instead, he just waits there about 20 meters away from Mirio. Since you won't come to me, I hope you're ready. With that, Mirio rushes at Jotaro before disappearing into the ground. Should be in about 3, 2, 1. Jotaro steps to the side, avoiding Mirio's attack. The look of shock on all three of their faces is apparent. Though some of that may be due to Mirio being naked. Speaking of which, he dives back into the ground and decides to not take it easy anymore. Try this, Phantom Menace. Mirio uses the full capabilities of his quirk to attack Jotaro, coming at him from multiple directions. However, Jotaro evades almost every single attack. This shocks them all again, as no one has ever been able to anticipate his strike when he uses that move. Jotaro is still just standing at the center waiting. I think I'll give him a different taste of my capabilities. He's not wrong in thinking that there will always be someone stronger. The problem is his phasing isn't that unusual to me. But he is creative given weakness of quirks as a whole. And he's coming at me again. Okay. Jotaro dodges a few more attacks, but then Mirio manages to get right up under him and land a punch to Jotaro's stomach. He got him. Did you see that? Mirio finally hit him. Najire says before Tamaki interrupts her with, yeah, but the freshman didn't fall down. Mirio cries out after the hit with, "Ah, damn, what are you made of? When I hit you, it was like punching metal." Jotaro just shrugs his shoulders and tilts his head. With that, Mirio decides to get even more serious. He dives back into the ground and moves even faster than before. Jotaro still dodges a lot of the attacks before he decides to finish this. He turns to face Mirio, who goes for a different super, blinder touch eyeball crush. Mirio goes for like he's gonna poke Jotaro's eye, but he isn't prepared for what happens next. Jotaro's head passes through his hand so fast that Mirio can't permeate his head fast enough. He takes a headbutt right between the eyes. And once he's reeling from that hit, Jotaro finishes the fight with a backhand fist smash to Mirio's stomach. The top member of the Big Three gets sent flying before impacting on a pillar unconscious. Neither Najire nor Tamaki expected this to ever happen. Especially with how much Mirio has trained up his quirk. As they think Jotaro is about to walk to leave, he instead grabs Mirio's gym uniform and brings it over to him. Then he stands to the side and waits. Mirio wakes up after a few minutes but is surprised that the guy who beat him stuck around. I figure I owed you a few explanations once you came to. Jotaro says while Mirio is putting his clothes on. As he is about to start explaining, Najire pops up again asking a bunch of questions. As well as getting into his personal space. After a few seconds, Jotaro chops her on top of her head. OOOWWW ow ow. What the heck? Oh, calm down. I didn't even hit you that hard. Crap, I lost my train of thought. Jotaro says while shaking his head. Tamaki takes the moment to just ask the big question. What the heck is your quirk? Jotaro is of course annoyed again but takes it in stride. I don't actually have a quirk. And before you ask, I can say that due to the fact it didn't activate when I was young. I was in an accident and a myriad of powers woke up in me at once. Well, so to speak anyway. While they are all completely floored by that explanation, Jotaro continues, you mentioned how it felt like you were punching metal or something when you hit me, right? That's not entirely wrong. One of my basic abilities is to absorb energy. And not just like electricity. Radiation is part of it too, don't freak out. Everyone on Earth absorbs a light amount of radiation every day. While the two of them are confused, Mirio puts it together. The sun. You absorb solar radiation, or rather solar energy. Right, but how does that make your body dense? Do you even realize how dense a sun is? Think of it like this. With just solar energy, it's like I have a mini sun inside my body. Thanks to that, the energy increases my muscle density and strength. There's a limit currently, but still. And since you probably want to know for sure how I tracked you and didn't flinch at the eyeball thing, it's rather simple. I didn't use my eyes. Now this floors all of them again, but Mirio realizes that would explain how he may not have flinched at the whole eye crush. But it doesn't explain how you knew where I was coming from. Even when I picked up my speed, you still seemed to know where I would pop out. Is foresight one of your powers? Jotaro shakes his head before explaining, no. While all of my senses are not only extra strong, but I kinda gained a few other senses when my powers went active. A simple one is the ability to emit a radar-like pulse, so I have a type of clairvoyance around me. But that wasn't how I tracked you underground. I may know how GPR works, but that takes a lot of concentration. And isn't good for the middle of a fight. They all seem to contemplate the application of all of his capabilities, from just tracking a villain, to a search and/or rescue mission. He really did have a lot of applications for just that power alone. Know how I tracked you was due to an interesting ability of mine. I can sense energy, not just absorb or use it. When you active your power, you let off a light energy wavelength. I'm good enough at memorizing that I can remember an energy field after sensing it once. And I can track its general location and direction. At this, Mirio's eyes widened more than the other members of the Big Three. He never really questioned the fact he could move through objects. That was just how his quirk worked. But this freshman had just told him a bigger part of his power that no one else ever could. It's no wonder you were as confident as you were in fighting me. You probably noticed how I came into the room earlier and remembered my energy state. Plus, if you didn't worry about looking and instead could just sense that I was making parts of myself permeable, you wouldn't worry about me going for your eyes. Jotaro coughs a bit at this but agrees. Nejire is still confused on parts of this freshman's mentality though, and asks, man, that is all kinds of incredible. But why did you stick around? I know you said you owed him an explanation, but most anybody else with a quirk, sorry power like yours would just want to show off and brag they beat the best in the school. But you don't. He looks away at the way Nejire describes what he did and could do. He sighs before explaining that Mirio is right, that there could always be someone stronger out there. There could be someone who has the capability to circumvent his power. But sometimes, there is a different mindset for guys like me or All Might. We have insane amounts of power. Enough that people look to us as inspirations at times. We have to limit ourselves, not just because our power could kill easily, but also because we have to both remind ourselves we're still human, and we have to sometimes remind people about restraint. This little speech awes Nejire and impresses Mirio. Tamiki is just facing away from everyone. Before they can keep talking, they hear alarms ring out. It's the intruder alarm. We gotta evacuate. The Big Three turn to leave, but Jotaro is just standing there. What are you waiting for? We're fine. It's just the press right now. I can hear their annoying chatter. After hearing that Big Three calm down, he sniffs the air a bit before thinking about something worrying. But there is a lingering scent of death around. Not sure what that's from. This could be trouble. Speaking of that matter, Izuku was talking with Ida and Ochako on why he'd been chosen as the president of Class 1A. You saved and inspired me during the entrance exam. You jumped in to help me when everyone else was running away. So, I know you can lead us well. Ochako said with a light blush. Indeed, you acted as a true hero in that moment. Something I cannot claim for myself. You reminded me of my brother. And it was proven even more so during our battle trial. Ida said with a nod. Izuku perks up at that and asked who Ida's brother was. The bespectacled teen cleared his throat before noting that his brother was the turbo hero, Ingenium. Whoa, that's the leader of Team Idaten. Though I guess that makes sense based on your quirk. You have the mufflers just like him. Is it a family thing? Or something similar to mutter? Izuku starts in on a mutter spree about Ida and his family. Only for it to be broken up by Suyu patting him on the shoulder. Sorry, what else were we talking about? He says while blushing. A bit of it was why we thought you were a good choice for President Midoriya. I voted for you because of how you planned things out for me during the battle trial. Really? Well, thank you, Asui, Izuku said with a small smile. Though he tried to ignore her asking that he call her Sue, and focused on his other VP. I'll let you in on something. I think Jotaro voted for you. Izuku says with a light conspiratorial tone. Momo is surprised by this and asked if Izuku was certain. He nodded and said, yeah. It's hard to read him at times thanks to his stature and the glasses. But when you were talking about how I and Ida had earned the MVP, he was paying attention. Ochako then piped up with, and he was a bit impressed by the traps you laid to try and stop him. Even if it didn't work in the end. The heiress looked down and thanked the two for their words. Hiroshima meanwhile admitted he had voted for Ida as well. I mean, you built a whole plan that let us be ready for when Asui and Midoriya would show up. You took command when you needed to. Pretty manly dude. Ida was beaming at the compliment sent his way by his teammate. But before he could respond with thanks, the alarm rang out among the students in the cafeteria. An alert noting that there had been an infiltration of the school. Something's off. This doesn't feel like a real infiltration. There's no tension and no extra sounds. Izuku thinks before looking out a window. Oh, you have gotta be kidding. It's just the media. Izuku calls out upon seeing the infiltration in question. He tries to get his fellow students' attention, but no one is listening. Izuku has a moment where he starts to see the world in slow motion. Noting that some people were already being hurt by the panicked mob. And no one was looking in the right direction to know what was really happening. He then spies Ida and notes that he seemed to be coming up with a plan. Ida, if we can get you above the others, do you think you can calm them down? Izuku calls out. The engine quirked teen was a bit surprised and announced that he could. Izuku nodded and powered up slightly. Not enough to hurt anyone, but enough to push through easier and get to Ochako. Uraraka, we need you to remove Ida's gravity. I think he can take it from there, he said after pulling her and Momo out from under some of the stampeding students. The gravity girl was surprised and blushing as she was right up against Izuku's chest, but she pushed past that to help where she could. Izuku and Momo used their powers to defend the girl and get her to Ida. And once the young man's gravity was gone, he used his engines to rocket himself to the wall above the exit sign. And then lambasted everyone for the way they were carrying themselves and missing the obvious evidence. You are students of UA High. We all must carry ourselves in a manner that befits our proud academy. After saying that, and a few joking about his exit sign impression, the students start to calm down and even help those who were originally being hurt by the stampede of teens. During afternoon classes, Izuku was proud to continue as the president of 1A and glad to be supported by both of his vices. Once the day is done and everyone is leaving, Jotaro and Sapphire go to where the faculty are gathered. At a wall of the UA barrier that had been decayed away. I'll leave it at that for now, but I'll include a bit for their thoughts on it in the next chapter. Although, I will say something in regard to the latest chapter of MHA, I was right. I'll get into more detail later, but I always knew quirks weren't entirely natural, that they were bad for people, and that they were far older than most knew. A few days after the break-in and Jotaro's fight with Mirio, Aizawa explained that everyone will be doing a special set of hero training. To emphasize his point he writes it on the chalkboard. Rescue. To this everyone around starts cheering. Now we get down to some real hero work and lessons. My quirk would be great for a water rescue. This is one of the reasons I want to be a hero. Settle down, Aizawa says with a flash from his eyes and his hair raising up. Once the class has he continues. You'll be working with 3 of your instructors today. Myself, All Might, and 1 other teacher. But we will have to go to a different area for the training. So, get your costumes and head outside to the buses. With that said, the students grabbed their gear and got ready to go. Before they all left though, Saphantite caught Aizawa to talk to him. You said that this training will be away from campus, right? I've been going over it a few times since the break-in a few days ago. And if you'll remember, Jotaro said it best. Aizawa has an even more disgruntled look than normal as he thinks back on it. Flashback. Jotaro and Saphantite walk up to where the teachers and the principal are gathered. A large chunk of the wall has been destroyed. What are the two of you doing here? Aizawa says a bit accusingly. Hey, I had nothing to do with this. Remember, you had me go and fight the supposed top guy at this school. Wait, what do you mean supposed to? Didn't Mirio beat you? Jotaro grunts angrily before saying, I'm pretty sure that isn't important right now. And he'll tell you later. A strange mouse-like being coughs to stop the argument before it escalates. Then he asks the actual question of the two's intentions. I take it you have more of an idea of who was behind this, yes? Oh, and before you ask, I am your principal. My name is Nezu. The two students look at each other before Jotaro speaks up. Not exactly, but something I noticed just before the alarms went off was that there seemed to be. I've got no other word for it. The smell of death in the air. I just thought it might be something further away, but after this I'll bet it was the same one who did this. Most of the teachers are wide-eyed by this statement. Well, at least the ones you can tell. Power Loader and Snipe's headgear makes it hard to tell. The only ones who aren't surprised are All Might and Nezu. Then Nezu broaches a topic most don't want to discuss with students. I'm guessing you have the same thought as I do on what this is then. Jotaro nods and keeps it simple. This is a declaration of war. This time the whole of the faculty is unsettled. Minus Nezu again. He in turn responds with, yes, I feel that as well. It is as if they are saying, we can break down the walls you try to protect yourself with easy. And are just taunting us. Saphantite takes this moment to speak her mind. This isn't just about breaking a wall. It was done stealthily. This was to create an opening for press, yes, but if they had smashed or crushed the wall it would have alerted everyone. Whoever did this was after something else. I agree, young Saphantite, but I don't think we have to worry too much yet. And besides, I am here. I'll stand ready with the others. All Might says is a way to prepare and inspire. And with that the faculty decide to leave it for now. Flashback end. Right, that whole matter. You think whoever did that is going to make a move now? Aizawa questions. She breathes deep before letting out a sigh. The look on her face says, I'm not entirely sure, but I wouldn't be surprised. That is enough for Aizawa to think this all could be much worse than they think. Before they leave, he talks to Present Mike and asks him to call to check in on his class about 30 minutes after they leave. What for, man? Call it a hunch. I may not like that American student of mine, but I don't think he's wrong. Besides, you heard too about how he beat Mirio but stuck around out of respect. He and Anwar seem almost too good at most of the hero stuff we have to practically beat into the students. After chuckling a bit at Aizawa's joke, Mike agrees and tells him if they don't respond he'll bring the rest of the faculty. With a nod, Aizawa goes to join his students on the bus. Ida is apparently lamenting that his loading strategy was pointless with the type of bus they were on. The rest of the students are chatting away about nonsense, everything from the unusual powers that Izuku, Jotaro and Saphantite have, to lamenting that some of their abilities aren't very impressive or eye-catching. Once they reach the huge dome for the rescue training, they all unload and go through the doors to see a multitude of scenarios created in different areas. Landslide, shipwreck, monsoon, even a section that is constantly on fire. It's like Universal Studios Japan in here, is what most of the students think. Then they see the two other figures they will be learning from. All Might to the right with his standard costume on, and another who is wearing what looks like a space suit. Oh my gosh, it's the Space Hero 13. He's one of my favorites. Okacho shouts out after seeing the guy in the space suit. Again, could they be a bit more predictable with their names? Jotaro thinks as they are introduced to the new hero. But what surprises him is his explanations and plans for teaching the students. After rambling for a bit about an increasing number of points he wants to bring up, But once he focuses, he gets down to the point he really wants to bring up, how their quirked world has changed what is safe or why regulations exist. At the mention that her power black hole could easily kill, she also speaks out to Jotaro as well. She mentions that the young man understands well the need for restraint, and that if nothing else the rest should look to him and All Might on knowing that sometimes you have to be careful on what you can do. Well, I guess that does explain why they have to give people jobs to where they can use their quirks. For some like him, without proper training it would lead to insane consequences. Jotaro thinks to himself, still doesn't make them real heroes in most cases, right? Saphantite communicates in his mind, smiling innocently as she does it. Before Jotaro can retort, he stops and sniffs the air. When a few others ask what he's doing, he runs up past 13 and All Might. He stops at the top of the stairs and says to All Might, "We've got a big problem." All of a sudden, a misty black space opens up at the center of the building for everyone to see. A multitude of people walk out of the black space. Has the training already started? Kaminari asks, panicking a bit. Aizawa grits his teeth and says, "No. Those are villains. And one with a warping quirk." Jotaro just says that he really shouldn't call most of those other people coming out villains. You're giving most of them too much credit. They're little more than thugs and animals. The zombie or something that brought them here though is a different story. Same with the other two huge guys by the portal guy. Let alone the one who destroyed the wall the other day. Everyone looks to him with shock and fear. All Might then asked, "Are you sure the one who did that is down there?" Jotaro just slowly turns his head to him and raises an eyebrow to say, "Really? Right, dumb question. But what do you mean by that? There are 3 zombies down there." Jotaro turns back to the center where all the enemies have gathered. He sniffs a few more times before saying, "While one of them has a constant smell of death, it's more like it is from actually killing people. The 2 big guys in the middle, I'm betting they were just cadavers or something like that they made for some sick purpose. The portal guy too, he was dead but someone desecrated his body to make a, possibly thinking weapon." Everyone around him is sickened and terrified by how easily he described what is going on. And what might even happen to them if they aren't careful. That is when Aizawa asks, "How do you know one of them is more capable of thinking?" "I can sense energy, remember. Human bodies let off a bit of energy. Predominantly the brain. The 2 bigger ones have almost no brain function. They can't think. My guess they can only follow orders. The portal guy, however, seems to have at least some brain function. But he is being kinda controlled too." With all that said, All Might and Aizawa get ready to face down the horde of enemies. Jotaro however does not back up when Aizawa tells him to. Instead, Jotaro walks up with them. When he is about to threaten to expel him, All Might stops him and says, "I get the feeling we are going to want and need his help. Besides, he technically doesn't have a quirk, so he doesn't have to follow our usual laws and rules." Aizawa is stunned by this and wants to refute that statement. But deep down he knows that they will probably need the help. Even with the miraculous healing that All Might had gained, he still was limited on his time. He only wasted about 2 hours this morning, so he could fight for a while. Still, they could use someone with Jotaro's raw power. As the 2 begin walking down, Jotaro tosses away his trench coat. Everyone sees the more of the black with red and white accented shirt that Jotaro is wearing, including the scales on his back and chest. With that done and All Might cracking his knuckles, he just asks, "You ready for this, John?" To which Jotaro smirks and says, "What do you think, Toshi?" Both finish this exchange with a chuckle and leave Aizawa feeling a little confused at what he had just heard. Then the 2 rush down as fast as they can. They both take out over 20 thugs in their first rush alone. Aizawa, having to go much slower, still manages to throw off a few of the ones that try to attack them from behind. He then also proceeds to knock out a few more as well. While this is all going on, 13 is starting to evacuate the students. However, the portal entity appears in front of them. "Greetings, students of UA. Do not worry, you are not the target of our attack this day. We are just here to kill All Might. But we can't have you leaving on us." Despite how intimidating it was with what he said, it was rather cordial. While most of the students are very terrified, especially as a few more thugs come out of his portal to emphasize the being's point of stopping them. A few want to jump in, but 13 stops them, saying to only fight in self-defense. However, Izuku and Saphantite step ahead of all the others. Izuku takes a stance with his right foot behind his left and his right fist down at his hip, palm up. His left, however, is open-palmed in a blocking stance. Saphantite starts tapping her foot and humming a bit before bouncing back and forth lightly on the balls of her feet. "What are you two doing? You can't use your quirks to fight them." Izuku looks back and says, "We've been over this, but the top 3 of us don't have quirks, remember?" "Ha, you're quirkless. Man, UA really has fallen. I'll crush this waste of space myself." A large imposing woman coats her hands in what looks like metal before trying to strike Izuku, to which he just blocks and deflects all of her strikes effortlessly. When the woman is getting flustered that someone she views as beneath her is making her look like a fool, she tries to up her intensity. But Izuku deflects one of her blows up before unleashing a OFA and his strange power-boosted attack to her stomach. Not only does this make her vomit a bit, but she gets sent flying so hard, she smashes through the domed roof. While this has been happening, Saphantite has been engaging a few of the smaller thugs herself. When they think they have a hit on her, she nimbly dodges and ducks out of the way. Then proceeds to break a few of their jaws and other parts, with kicks so hard she snaps their necks around or breaks some of their bones with a hit. A few had strengthening or enhancing quirks, but they underestimated her because they thought she didn't have a quirk. Izuku is also engaging a few other thugs and thinking back to a special 2 months in the time bubble. Flashback. It had been 2 months in the bubble training before Jotaro announced they'd be doing something a bit different. "You know how to work the power you have now, but you're still trying to be a copy of this guy," points to All Might. "Besides, there may be times when you can't or rather shouldn't use your powers. This whole world may be made of peacocks wanting to preen with their abilities, but there is still a place for learning proper martial arts. For the next 2 months we'll be focusing on that." All Might and Izuku are dumbstruck by this statement. 2 months. How do you know he won't forget how it felt to channel OFA? No offense. No, I'm with you, All Might. How will this help? The two oddities share a look before Saphantite says, "Okay Izuku, you'll fight me for a bit. I'm not going to use my genie abilities, just the martial arts I've mastered. You on the other hand will attack with what you can do with your power." The two who are going to spar step out a ways. Saphantite then puts her hands in her pockets and starts bouncing on the balls of her feet. She then starts moving a bit back and forth between 2 spots. Izuku and All Might don't know what to make of this, but Jotaro just smiles, know how she is going to smack him down. With OFA charged up, Izuku rushes at Saphantite with a punch, who proceeds to bend easily back at the hip and dodge the initial blow. While Izuku is parallel with Saphantite, he sees her smile. It was then he knew. He F'd up. She follows up with an almost backflip before kicking Izuku's back and slamming him into the ground. After he bounces up a little from the hit, she combos with a spinning roundhouse to his stomach. Izuku is sent flying back into the wall of the time bubble. Just as Izuku is getting his senses back, she flips over him again and drop kicks his head, and follows in up with a backflip kick that sends him into the air again, and she catches him with her legs and slams him down before holding his head in a leg lock. All Might is just stunned at what he has seen, while Jotaro is just nonplussed at the whole matter. All right, let's not kill him. Saphantite lets Izuku go, who needs about an hour before he is ready to spar again. He then asks what all that was. "A few martial arts mixed together. We both are experts in a fair number. What she mostly used on you was capoeira. I know it as well, but she outranks me in that art. I'm a professor, but she is a contramestra. She's also brilliant at kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. Though in contrast I'm more skilled in Southern Shaolin and pankration. I also know a bit of a few styles from Japan. We'll be teaching you a few others for the next 2 months. If you're wondering why we want to do this, but it goes back to a problem with the powers in this world. Most of the heroes rely on their powers. They don't think a skilled martial artist could beat them. But those arts were used for combat and killing long before powers came in. So, We'll show you how to make better use of both the power and the body. As once the 2 months are done, we're gonna make you put them together. Saphantite explains. Izuku nodded and couldn't wait to get started. Most dojos wouldn't let him in because he was quirkless. They didn't see the point in teaching him. But no, he had 2 masters who were expert fighter. All Might also joined in during this time. Izuku felt it could really give him a leg up the next time he gets pulled into a fight. Flashback end. Once the few thugs that the portal guy had brought with him were beat, the other students were stunned by what they had seen. A few had seen a bit of Izuku and to an extent Saphantite's skills as fighters, but they thought more of their power came from their powers. I should ask them to spar sometime, Ojiro thought to himself. Kurogiri POV. With his thugs beaten, Kurogiri was about to get close and warp the students away when he heard a sonic boom from the center of the building. He then went back to his master's apprentice to see what had happened. There he saw the blue-haired young man, who he knew as Shigaraki Tamura, scratching at his neck incessantly. It was out of the dust that was settling he saw what upset him. AAAAANNND cliffhanger. Well, kinda. I thought I'd give a little more of what the other 2 are good at and some background into what more Izuku learned in the time bubble before getting to the big finisher. While 13 was trying to remove the rest of the students from the USJ, the 3 who went down the steps were engaged in their own battles. Though Jotaro and All Might had little trouble with most of them, Aizawa took it upon himself to make sure most of them wouldn't get back up. Well, nice to see the almighty symbol of peace here. At least you won't be late for your own funeral. But what is this? Another joke who thinks they can stand against chaos? The odd young man with hands all over his body said. When the 2 of them turned in his direction they had stern, determined looks on their faces. Ooh, so intimidating. You government-sanctioned weapons of violence. We are the League of Villains, and I am its leader, Shigaraki Tamura. We're here to end you so-called reign of justice and bring this society crumbling down around you. At that mention, Jotaro's face grew more severe. He and All Might looked to each other before the latter said, you claim these lofty goals but they all ring hollow. True villains have a greater conviction to their voices and purpose. You just want to destroy everything for the sake of destroying things. Saw right through me, huh? Doesn't matter, the Black Nomu here was built just to defeat you. And he'll have a little help, if necessary, from the White Nomu. Their quirks have been specifically set to fight you. All Might was about to rush all 3 when Jotaro stopped by saying that both beasts probably have similar abilities to counter how he fights. Shigaraki seems annoyed by this interloper in his plans to kill All Might. Who the hell are you and what makes you think you know anything? I know when I'm dealing with someone who just wants to burn everything down because he feels like everything is against him. So, he wants to break it all for the sake of breaking it. And brat, don't think your little toys will help you. At hearing that, Shigaraki starts twitching a bit and scratching at his neck before screaming, kill them. Kill them both. With that, both Nomu rush forward. The black-skinned one engages All Might who blocks before striking back with Detroit Smash. While the white-skinned Nomu throws a punch at Jotaro. He doesn't block, but instead jumps up a bit. He then lands his hands on the arm of the Nomu before swinging his legs around and kicking the beast across the face. Both creatures are sent reeling from their respective hits. The black one appears slightly winded, and the white one has a broken jaw. Well, I have to admit you both seem to hit pretty hard, but sorry. Black Nomu has shock absorption. And white has he trails off before the Nomu's jaw reattaches itself. Hyper regeneration. Which in turn means you've got at least a regeneration power on the black one as well. And my guess, at least from that engagement, the white one also has density increasing ability too. Even with the hand on his face you can tell Shigaraki is surprised by what Jotaro had said. When he asks how he knew, he simply replies with, I didn't really, I was mostly guessing. But given that you wanted to kill All Might, it would be stupid to have weapons that aren't capable of countering his main ways of attacking. With those statements given in such a condescending way, Shigaraki starts scratching at his neck more. Then he screams for both of the Nomu to kill them again. All Might and Jotaro look to each other and nod before rushing forth to engage their enemies again. They proceed to attack and block or dodge any strike the Nomus throw at them. With All Might shouting out his attacks like Oklahoma Smash, or Michigan Smash, or even the Carolina Smash, to strike the Nomu in a variety of ways. While Jotaro doesn't call out his attacks, he does mix in a lot of different strikes to see what works best. Everything from tiger palm strikes, to even at one point tackling it down and pummeling the beast pancration style. It isn't as if the two don't take any hits, but they manage to shrug off any blows that connect with little worry. They even manage a joke bit and trick the two beasts into punching one another. Though both heroes were a bit bemused at the fact that after the first hit, the two attacked each other a few more times. Shigaraki eventually had to tell them to stop and re-engage the heroes. After fighting for a few minutes, All Might just says to Jotaro and Shigaraki, "All right. Enough with holding back. You two, Jotaro. Let's finish this." With a small smile and a crack of his knuckles, Jotaro just says, "Sounds good." With that said, the two rush forward and start unleashing a barrage of blows on the beasts. The Nomu also are attacking too, but they can't keep up with the pair of heroes and soon they are overwhelmed. With a final blow, the two Nomu are sent flying. The dust from the brawls swirling around in the aftermath. It was then that Kurogiri returned to the side of his master. Shigaraki had started scratching at his neck more, drawing blood, before shouting, "They cheated. He isn't weaker at all. And the brat next to him was capable of keeping up. What the hell?" It was then that Jotaro stepped forward to say, "No, you just think everything should go your way. So, it's no surprise you failed. Now I think we really need to finish this." All Might is about to tell Jotaro to incapacitate Kurogiri, when Shigaraki rushes at him. Jotaro's face shows shock, but he pushes All Might back from the villain's strike. Instead, he touches the ground, and it begins to decay. When that is done, he looks at Jotaro and says, "You're just a damn DLC character that ruins everything. I'll kill you," and he rushes at him. Jotaro dodges most of the strikes, but when Kurogiri redirects one, he reacts on impulse. Jotaro dodges again, but he grabs Shigaraki's arm and proceeds to rip it off. Once it catches up to Shigaraki what happened, he starts screaming. Jotaro and the other heroes on the other hand are shocked by what he did. Jotaro looks down at the arm before throwing it away, a terrified look on his face. "Not again. Not again. I couldn't control it. I wasn't even sure his power would work on me. I just reacted and..." Jotaro's mind is swimming at the fact he hurt someone by accident again. Kurogiri takes the moment that all the heroes are distracted to pull Shigaraki away, before warning that this will not only have repercussions but will give a greater reason for him to fight. With the fight between the Nomu and heroes done, the latter seemingly stunned by what occurred, a few thugs that were left felt this was their chance to kill All Might and the kid who could fight on par with him. All of a sudden, a few gunshots rang out. The other heroes had arrived. It only took them, and All Might, a few minutes to take down the others who had been brought to the USJ. Once it was done and the police had arrived to take them into custody, did one of them ask what was with this bloody arm. Saphantite and Izuku say Jotaro tense up before he said, "I have to go," and leapt off. The two of them nodded and Saphantite flew after him. The police, heroes and the students wanted to know what happened. All Might decided it might be best to rip the band-aid off after a nod from Aizawa. "While we were fighting down there, young Jotaro and I engaged the pair of monsters they brought to try and kill me." "Wait, they thought they could kill you? That's impossible. You're the strongest ever." All Might shook his head before continuing. "It wouldn't have been impossible with what they had done to those bodies. They were insanely strong, let alone the fact they had multiple quirks. And yes, it is different from Jotaro and the others. The leader specifically called them quirks, not powers. But that wasn't the part that was hard." All Might looked down before continuing. "The leader has the ability to decay anything he touches, it seems. After young Jotaro pushed me away from a strike, the leader kept attacking him. He of course had no problem dodging, but when the warp villain redirected a strike, Jotaro reacted and well. He ripped the villain's arm clean off. This horrified almost everyone around them, but a few were able to rationalize or help the others see that it was an accident. Don't forget Jotaro is the same age as us. He is extraordinarily capable, but he may still react in ways take time to temper. At Ida saying that, both Izuku and All Might shared a somewhat pained look. Aizawa broke the matter up by telling everyone to give their statements and head home. The principal also told them that they won't have to come to school tomorrow. Izuku wanted to help his friend, but he knew that Saphentite had to get through to him first. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Shigaraki was screaming as his wound was cauterized by a doctor allied with the League. While that was going on, Kurogiri was giving his report to his true master. It was impressive, master. All Might didn't even seem tired, and we know he had used up some time due to our distractions with other villains in town. But it wasn't just All Might. That boy that fought with him was able to keep up with both All Might and the Nomus. The mysterious figure HM from the other side of the television screen. And this is the one who maimed Tamura. Yes, master. Though to be honest, the only reason Master Tamura was able to get close was because of me. The hero student had little trouble dodging everything Tamura threw at him. The figure HM again before telling Kurogiri to keep a close eye on Tamura for a time. He would ask a few others with connections in the underground to look into the boy. It is impressive how that boy figured out how the Nomus worked right away. He even knew that they were basically dead bodies. Let alone the sheer power he has. I would love to get my hands on his quirk. Saphentite had been flying for a while and hadn't found Jotaro yet. He can be pretty stealthy when he wants to be. Or when he feels he needs to stay away from everyone. But I haven't known him this long without knowing what he may do or where he may go. Saphentite says to herself. After an hour of searching, she decides to borrow something that All Might had mentioned to her. With that done and a base plan built, she heads towards Mount Fuji. She finds Jotaro buried in a snowbank near the top of the mountain. I thought so, she says as she floats down to him. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. Whenever you get scared or panic about what you can do, you go to a cold high place away from everyone. You heard about what I did, right? At Saphentite's negative, Jotaro starts on a bit of rant. I ripped that guy's arm off. It wasn't even that hard. Sure, I've disabled certain villains before, but I've always tried to not leave them with lasting damage. This though, I thought I had. Jotaro stops for a bit, choking up the words he wants to say. Saphentite just comes up to him, puts a hand on his shoulder, and slaps him once across the face. It doesn't hurt him much. In fact, it hurts her more than anything. But it snaps Jotaro a bit out of his spiral. She then hugs him before saying, I know. You've worked as hard as you could to contain all of the power you possess. You were always trying to avoid some battles so that no one would get hurt. While she is saying that, Jotaro starts to tear up a bit before hugging her back. But you can't blame yourself every time. Yeah, you have trained, but don't forget that you are in a body that sometimes acts more on instinct than anything. And those instincts have saved multiple lives. Mine included. Even when you've hurt someone by accident, you still have tried to help or save them. At this, both of them tighten their grip on each other and Jotaro just cries. You can't control everything in this world. And let's be honest, I know you wouldn't want to. But you can still do a lot of good and save even more lives than you hurt. The justice for your actions will save and help more than you know. Saphentite says while tearing up a bit too. The two of them just sit there on top of Mount Fuji for a while. Once both have calmed down, Jotaro is laying on his back while Saphentite is laying with her head on his stomach. Thanks. I think that is the most scared I've been for quite a while. And as usual, you're the one who can pull me back down or out. Saphentite snorts at that before saying, you really do need to learn to be less dependent on me. Although I will admit it, I was tempted to let Izuku try to help you. It is the entire reason he wants to be a hero. Saving people. You're right, and honestly, it wouldn't hurt for me to let more people in. We should probably get down from here. To which Saphentite just says, do I have to give up my warm pillow? With eyebrow raised, Jotaro just gives her a look that says, yes you do. So, with a sigh, Saphentite sits up and brushes herself off before standing. Jotaro follows suit and is about to ask what she wants to do next. Well, we can follow up with that matter from a few weeks ago. At that statement, Jotaro gives her a puzzled look before Saphentite pulls a file from behind her back. I think I've got us a lead on the little girl you heard screaming when we were in a different prefecture. At this, Jotaro turns around and asks her where and who it was involved. An old friend of Toshinori's has been looking into a group near there. The Shi-Hisaki. It's apparently a Yakuza group that's been making a fuss lately. She hands him the file and he gets what info he can from it. While he is doing this, she goes on to explain that the current head has recruiting various cannon fodder and trying to market something that gets rid of quirks, as well as a drug to amplify them. With what she has said and with the capabilities of the two of them, Jotaro comes to a single conclusion: we can't do this alone. Or rather, this will take more than just me breaking down doors. I'm guessing you've got a bit more of a plan than I do. Saphantite nods before saying, yeah. With both of our limited capabilities, we can't get the job done. Beating them would be no problem. But they'd get the girl away before we could blast or punch through them all. Jotaro snorts before saying, punching through them all wasn't my direct plan. Besides, I have an idea of someone who could help us and may not even be opposed to backing us up. At least once we talk to him. Saphantite isn't sure what he means at first. Then she thinks back to a few dangerous news reports. You can't be serious. That guy is crazy. Even if we find him, which I don't doubt you can, why would he help us? Jotaro turns back to her before turning his head up to the moon and saying, because he believes in the idea of heroes. He's just stuck on the warped version that this world has made. Let alone the fact that he's attacked villains as much as any hero. With that, the two make their plan to go to Hosu and catch their quarry tonight. They are going after the hero killer, Stain. Another fake hero to be purged. Be glad that your death will lead society to a better tomorrow. With that said, Stain tries to bring his katana down on the sidekick of Ingenium. But his blade stopped short of his victim's throat. He may not be a real hero, but this isn't the way to fix the issues. A large man with a hood had grabbed the blade of the katana and was moving it away from the hero. Who are you to stand in the way of my righteous purpose? Stain shouts at the large figure. The hooded man says, someone who thinks your talents are wasted on this. You're coming with me, to which the hooded figure snaps Stain's chipped katana and grabs the man by the front of his shirt and leaps away. The hero who was about to die by Stain's hand starts to be able to move, when another figure appears in front of him. While he can't see what they look like, he is sure they are a woman when they say, don't worry. Your friends are on the way. But you won't remember much. And with a wave of their hand, the sidekick falls asleep. After the hooded figure lands on a roof a few streets away and tosses Stain on the ground, the villain tries to attack the large man with his knives. The blades don't even pierce his hooded shirt. Not one bit of fabric is torn. This makes Stain nervous. He didn't even bleed or even look like he grabbed my blade before. He may be completely immune to almost anything I do. I have to get out of here. If you're thinking of running, don't. I'm already ahead of you. A voice behind Stain calls out. He turns and sees a figure floating in the air. Before you go on a fight or flight reaction, calm down and think. You got a rough idea of how powerful I am when I showed up. If I was out to kill you or turn you into the cops, I could have. Hell, my partner could have no issue either. So, what do you think it is we are after? Stain was taken aback by this but realized that he was correct. So, he thought it over while trying to look for a way to escape. You want to recruit me. You're a villain who is hoping to piggyback off my cause and skills to grow their own right. Well, it won't happen. I hate fool like that as much as I hate fake heroes. A chuckle from the large man surprised the villain. You aren't wrong in that we want to recruit you. But we aren't villains. Did you ever hear about the raids or busts that got interrupted or the villains were beaten before the heroes could get there? Stain's eyes widen at that. He had thought the ones behind the denouncement of most fakes were gone. But here they were. Or so they claim. They could just be trying to Stain thought before a set of glowing ropes were wrapped around him, which then turned to rings, string, and bands of light before disappearing. You truly are the ones. Then what do you need my help for? Even though he couldn't see the large man's face, he could tell he had a serious point next. We're trying to save a life. I heard a young girl cry out some time ago, but I was in a different prefecture. By the time I got to where I thought she was gone. All that lingered was a bit of a smell. A smell of drugs, blood, and fear. Stain had an enraged face as well at that thought. The man went on to say that even if he hadn't smelled it, he would still try to save her. This calms and impresses Stain a bit, who says, "It seems you are a true hero at your core. And I'm guessing your partner is too. If what you are after is to save a life, then I wouldn't be opposed to helping you. But I still need to purge more fakes from this twisted society. You don't need to interrupt that. In case you forgot, we do that too, but we bring down the fakes a different way. By showing that they don't deserve to call themselves heroes for other reasons. Most of the ones you kill, I doubt you've done much research to see what they may have done or how long they even have been in this stupid hero business." Stain's eyes widen a bit before he looks down. He can't refute what the man had said because it was true. He rarely looked into certain heroes and capitulates by saying, "You aren't wrong. I've been more focused on going after random riff-raff types of heroes. I was thinking on going after Ingenium next. But not killing him, just crippling him. He may not be the ideal form of hero, given it is mostly about a family obligation. But he is better than most." At this, the man across from him sighs before leaning back on the railing of the roof. "If I'm being honest, your problem is that your ideal is still too wrapped up in this very warped world as a whole. What do you really think is the problem with heroes now? I know you have a problem with too many that just want to show off their power. Or the ones that want to use their quirks for selfish reasons. But doesn't a lot of that come back around to a different issue altogether?" With all of that said, Stain thinks a bit more about what he has seen. His ideal hero has always been All Might. The man was a hero to save others and to protect others. Never for himself. He only used his quirk for the good of others. Other heroes may use their quirks for profit or to make the next generation quirk. Wait, why do I keep coming back to that? Unless. The man interrupts his thought by saying, "I take it you've gotten a bit of an idea on where I'm going with this, right?" Stain bows his head and says, "It all keeps coming back around to quirks. The need to make being a hero a profession. The villains who lash out with their powers often just for attention. This constant obsession with something we may not be able to control, and some even try to control. It is the root of what has warped us all. Even me." At that, the man nods before the woman starts in on what they want to do and who they are trying to stop. The current head of the Shihiseki has been up to something involving a way to remove quirks or boost them. If they are out to destroy quirks, then why stop them? Given what you have said, this could be a boon to you. Stain asks. Even though he can't see their faces, he can feel their intense gazes. That is when he starts putting parts together. They're using the girl, aren't they? The two look at each other before saying they don't know for sure. But most of the evidence points to yes. This is part of a bigger problem. With lots of people having powers, they gain a way to possibly make weapons out of people. At this, Stain is enraged but realizes that what he has been doing won't help unfortunates like that girl. In some cases, he may have killed a hero that could have known or had found out more. And now he sees a greater impact of what he has done and drops to his knees. "We have put together a plan to get the girl out and take down the Yakuza. But not only can we not do it alone, but we can't go to the heroes to do it." Stain looks up at the two and asks why they cannot. "If we go to the heroes, they'll want to do this by the book. Warrants, bringing in the police, all that. And we don't know for certain if any heroes around the area are in the Yakuza's pocket. The two of us have more than enough power to get most of this done, but not without a threat to the girl. That is where we want you to come in." Stain is still floored and confused by all that has been said. He keeps going over more and more thoughts before asking them something a bit unrelated. Is it even possible to have a true hero society when it has been badly warped like ours? The two figures look at each other and sigh before one says, "Let us show you." The two then reach out and touch Stain's head. His mind is filled with a myriad of images. Heroes arising from all walks of life, those with powers and without. There are some images of fakes like what he has seen, but they were later shown for how shallow and empty of heroes they were. A great battle, of heroes and villains. Some heroes had called to others and the true heroes answered to save as many lives as possible. Even in the face of tragedy and pain, some rose as heroes, not for themselves but for the people around them. Even a few who had been villains, later took a chance and became heroes themselves. This series of visions, this beacon of hope, brings the hero killer to tears. I thought they seemed strange. They never once called their powers quirks. They have never shown their faces because they know what they are doing is right. They must have been from that world they showed me. If it is them, then, Stain, no, Akaguro Chizome. What? The two ask. It is then Stain stands and says, my name it is Akaguro Chizome. Those visions you showed, they aren't from this world, are they? Some of that devastation that I saw heroes rise from has never happened here. You're real heroes from somewhere else. The two, though still hidden, have surprised looks on their faces. I won't ask more, but if true heroes like you are here, then maybe you with the help of other true heroes can truly fix what has been warped about our society. The man bows his head a bit before saying, to be honest, I've never really called myself or thought of myself as a hero. Before I had tried to do good with what I could do, I caused so much misery. Even just by accident. Chizome bows his head again and smiles saying, and that is more of a reason that you are a hero. With Chizome having been convinced to aid them, asks what the plan is. The woman then goes over the basics. I'm going in first, you see. I can slip in through the vents to find the girl. Once she is found, I'll leave a decoy behind and try to take her with me back through. That is where the two of you come in. Jay here can handle most of their heavy hitters no problem. Even the boss shouldn't be a problem now that he has his mojo back. A lot of street thugs should be out just aiming to get money, so we hopefully won't have to deal with them. I want you to back Jay up in taking down their other big guns. Once that is done and we've crippled all of their members, we'll leave the cleanup and arrest to the police. Then we get the girl to a hero we can trust or believe in. At the mention of trusting a hero, Chizome isn't too sure. Why trust a possible fake? This one isn't. He not only has been looking into and trying to stop these guys for a while, but he is also All Might's former sidekick. At that mention, Chizome nods in agreement. The other two agree to meet him across from the Shihisaki base the next night. I'll scout around the area a bit. I'm good at being inconspicuous from all my time hunting fakes to target. Okay. Don't go with your usual get-up for this. It might draw more attention. Also don't worry about a katana. We'll have you covered later. The large man called Jay says while Chizome takes off his mask and scarf. He thinks back to the one who made him first see why he failed and his own weakness about his convictions. In contrast, the two in front of him have had their convictions tested more than once but never faltered, though have stumbled from what they hoped to do. So yeah, this might seem like a crazy plan and way I'm basically removing two major arcs right now. But as I have said, I have a plan. And while you may think there is no way Stain would do this, don't forget that the guy is inspired by All Might. What he sees in him is what he feels every other hero lacks. Part of him isn't wrong too. It's a little of my problem with the whole hero society of MHA I have a problem with. I've said it before, but the fact that being called a hero to them as a job seems a bit wrong in a handful of ways. Let alone calling themselves heroes, when in many cases they honestly just seem like super cops or literally just people who are looking for a reason to use their powers. Or in my usual statement, can play with their little tricks in some cases. There are many who have a good heart for this, and that is what Stain refuses to see. But for the most part it seems like most get into hero work for the fame or fortune involved. Look at the mess that is Endeavor, or what we see a hero say after the war arc. This isn't what I signed up for. Maybe I should look for a different job. Just something to think about with the whole warped world of quirks. Chizome had been watching over the Shihisaki hideout for the day of the attack. He noticed that most of the ones going in and out were just random riff-raff like the woman had said. He also considered that the point to having all of those types was to slow down the heroes and police. The biggest guns were probably inside. He had seen a few walk around the premise when he observed from a rooftop. One was a huge brute with some brass knuckle-like gear who appeared to be paired with a man in monk's clothing. That pair would be better for Jay to handle. Even if I can cut him, there are probably others that have stranger abilities that might be a problem for him. He later observed a strange skinny man with a bag over his head eating a brick and madly mumbling to himself. Shizome figured that that may have been one who was driven mad by his quirk. There had been a few cases in his time, but they were often glossed over. It's just like they said. People often ignore the weakening of the minds due to quirks just so they can feel better about quirks as a whole. You don't even hear about the quirk singularity much anymore. As the day continued, he overheard a few things from the various Yakuza thugs in the area. Most of the thugs were in general complaining about their various heads or top members. A few even mentioned the quirks that some of them had, including a crystallizing quirk and an energy-stealing one. I may take out the bone-masked one and the one with the wide-brimmed hat. From what it sounds like, the two have less direct combat abilities. I may have Bloodcurdle, but for some of these opponents it wouldn't work well. Shizome knew that people start to get more suspicious the more you observe from the same or similar places, so he kept on the move and out of sight around the Shihisaki base. He even took out a few of the thugs around the area. Not his fault that they were so dumb that they thought they could mug him. But with night approaching, he went elsewhere to get a variety of gear for himself. A biker helmet for his head, a few extra knives, and a black combat suit. It was just before nightfall when the two met up with him again. I scouted around the area and listened in on a few of the thugs they sent out. Most of said thugs are gone for the day, but the top members all apparently live here. 8 major fighters, I'm guessing, and a handful of officers. Only heard a little bit about them though. The number 2 has some kind of power to stop time or something. It's probably like my quirk, but he doesn't need blood for it. Shizome explained to the two who had just arrived. The woman nodded before saying, that is roughly what the intel we had said as well. I'm still going in first, so we don't have to worry about the girl much once I'm in. Keeping them busy at the front will be you two's job. The 2 men nod, and then the large man Jay says to the woman, we should give him the extra tools he needs for this fight. The woman, even with her face hidden, seems reluctant, but nods and claps her hands. From between her hands a pair of katanas appear. One blade had a white saya with a sakura-like tsuba, and a black and white Ito wrap and samigawa on the suka. The other had a black saya with an almost flame-like tsuba, and a purple and red Ito wrap and samigawa. Even without drawing them, Shizome could almost feel a difference between the two. The black blade seemed to radiate violence and bloodlust, not unlike himself only a day ago. The other was a more peaceful blade in some ways. Still capable of taking a life, but not needlessly. What are these? He asks the two who hold the blades out to him. The white blade is the Muramasa. The true Muramasa, capable of cutting, but only what it feels is necessary. The black blade is the Masamune, who, if you know the legends, is a violently bloodthirsty blade. It will cut anything without discretion. At that second statement, Shizome is a bit unsure if he should take the latter. He mentions that he may get caught up in his old ways if he were to take up that blade. I don't mind using the Muramasa, but the Masamune seems like too big of a risk. Why would you offer it to me? He asks. Jay then nods before saying, it is true that Masamune is a dangerous blade, but that just means it needs a strong warrior who is strong in their convictions and will to keep it in check. And I do feel that is you. Shizome's eyes widen at that statement and he, albeit hesitantly, takes the Masamune. And if you did lose yourself, I could just stop you if needed. The large man says with a chuckle. Shizome himself is laughing at what he said and agrees. I think you two should take these back after we are done. There would be far too much temptation if I held on to these. Shizome says, knowing how he may easily slip back into his old ways. With a nod and the woman saying they had a job to do and a child to save, the 3 get ready for their mission. Saphantite POV. I'm still not sure about trusting Shizome, but at least I know John can handle him. But I can't worry about that now. Now I have to get to that little girl and get her out of here. Night Eye only knew rumors about the drugs to amp and remove quirks. But I wouldn't put it past this guy who calls himself Overhaul. I've seen a few like him before. He is only interested in keeping his power for his own ego and his obsession with control. And if what John and I suspect is true, the little girl may be part of the plan. How long before we perfect the quirk erasing bullets? I hear a voice while I'm moving like smoke through the vents. One of the better perks of being a being made of smokeless fire. Another month or two. If you could extract more of the blood from the little demon, we can play around with the formula a bit more. Not a problem. I'll just take her apart and put her back together a few more times. Extracting blood. Calling a child a demon even while you possibly torture them. That tears it. We are shutting these bastards down hard. You two heard that right. It is Chizome who responds with, "Yeah, we heard that." Jay is trying to calm himself down so he can't talk right now. I know I said I was worried about slipping back into my stain madness, but I am tempted to unleash it upon all of these monsters. I give a quiet chuckle at that before agreeing with him. I kind of want you to kill them all too. But they aren't the mission. The girl is. And now I have even more of a reason for trying to save her. Once those two are gone from the lab, I float in a copy as much information as I can. It'll be needed for the future case against these guys. With that done and a few of these files now set to both delete themselves once the Shihisaki have all been arrested and sentenced, as well as making sure the files can't be copied again, I can move on to the main purpose. I find the sad little girl crying in a room that, while it may have things to make her comfortable, is her prison. Hey there, I know you aren't okay. But don't worry, I'm here to save you. I say to keep her from crying out. I already took out any cameras in this place so it should be fine. She looks at me with a terrified look before saying, "You can't be here. If they find you, Overhaul will kill you." She seems about ready to break into hysterics when I decide to do something that I doubt many have done to her before. I wrap her up in a hug. She of course is terrified at first before relaxing in my grasp. I stroke her hair a few times, which seems to calm her more. Before long she is almost asleep in my arms. I wish I could just let her sleep, but time is of the essence. I wake her up and tell her I'm here to get her out. She looks like she wants to protest, thinking that she and I can't escape. Don't worry, I have a plan and I have some incredibly powerful backup. Okay you two, I've got her. I need about 5 minutes in the vents. Then you can go nuts. The two men on the other side give an affirmative, and say they'll wait. With that done I ask if she wants to fly. She looks at me confused before I float up a bit, taking her with me. She is wide-eyed at the whole experience, and before she can ask what is going on, I put my finger to my lips to say to be quiet and turn us both into smoke. We float through the vents and after about 5 minutes I hear John make his big entrance. We still have a little way to go, but not too much. In fact, we are already outside when the building starts to remodel itself. Overhaul's doing, no doubt. With that done we get away to safety while the other two finish the job. Hopefully, John and Chizome can fully end this poor girl's living nightmares. No POV. It's time, Jotaro says to Chizome. With a nod from the hunchbacked man, Jotaro rushes at the front gate of the Shihisaki, destroying it. Once that is done, he engages a few of the random thugs that are still there, taking all of them down with little effort. When he steps into the building, he notices the man above him who is trying to attack him from above. He's above me. Do you see him? I see him. He won't stop justice this day. Chizome says back with his mind to Jotaro. He doesn't know what this monster's quirk is, but he won't get the chance to use it. Chizome rushes the man with a bronze-like mask and slashes him across the chest with Masamune. It may not kill him right away, but the man is going nowhere fast. Especially when Chizome uses his quirk to stop him. Damn it, what's going on? I can't move. Both of them hear the man say. It is then that a few of the other members appear along with the boss, Overhaul. Disappointing that you were felled so easily, Chrono. But I guess whoever these sick heroes are, we're expecting you. No matter, I can see to it you won't stop my plans. The man says before placing his hand on the ground. With that the whole building is reshaped and changes around all the people present. Once it is done, Chizome is trapped with the bone-masked member, the member with a black beak mask and hat, and a tiny member. So then care to share who you are and what you intend here? The man with the hat asks Chizome. He may want to give a whole speech, but he can tell this is just a ploy to buy time. So, he rushes at the bone-masked villain, cutting him with a knife he threw before the rush. Whoa, guess this guy is one to mess around or make big speeches. Shizome is starting to feel dizzy but manages to kick the man with his spiked boots. That one must have a quirk that causes this. I only guessed at it given what I saw and heard earlier, but I'm glad I went after him first. From the little bit of blood that had been exposed from the knife wound and his kick, Shizome managed to stop the villain. It was then the other two tried to attack him with guns, and when he saw a large arm appear out of the little one. I can't hold back here. I was only planning to use Masamune, but I may need Muramasa. After that thought, Shizome draws the other blade, wielding both as he rushes the pair of villains. The two try to shoot him, but he manages to block and dodge most of their shots. He slashes the tiny one with Muramasa and stabs Masamune through the villain with the hat. The former just deflating after and the later collapsing with the sword through his stomach. Glad that worked. You should be glad I'm only after one thing. Though, you animals don't get to know what that is. Shizome says with contempt. While he is saying that though, Muramasa has been shaking a bit in his grip. What's going on? He questions both in general and to his sword. You fool. Mimic jumped into your sword as you cut his doll form. Now he'll take the blade and finish you. The man with the hat said smugly. Shizome, however, wasn't worried. It's not like that would do him any good. Muramasa will deal with him. The villain was confused by this statement. Is he talking about himself? Or the other person? He can't be talking about the sword. It's just a hunk of metal. Sharp but not alive. Whatever. This will be done soon. Soon enough the villain known as Mimic reappears. However, he is in no position to be attacking. What the hell is that sword? It's like there's something alive in it. But how is that possible? The large and rather buff villain screams. Of course, the other two villains are confused, and then they see that Mimic is missing both an arm and a leg, along with multiple cuts across his body. For being Yakuza, you're all not much for the histories and legends of your homeland. These two blades are the Masamune and the Muramasa. And you, Mimic, were dumb enough to try to take over the sword of violence and bloodlust. All of the villains are stunned and confused. They had thought myths and legends like that were nothing more than fairy tales. Quirks were real and the powers were usually explained by science. But this was a whole matter of fiction. I don't think he appreciated you attacking his body that way. So I guess I'll just let him do what he wants for now. With that said, Shizome lets go of the blade. But rather than clatter to the ground like the other villains thought it would, it floated a bit above the ground. I know Jay asked me to hold back a bit, but and hopefully he won't begrudge Muramasa a bit of payback. I'll stop him before he kills them. With that thought, Shizome lets the katana of violence free on the villains. By the time it is done, all of them are missing two limbs and have multiple cuts across their bodies. Shizome puts all of his will and conviction into stopping the blade from killing them. He even bandages up their injuries, so they don't all die. Now all that is left is for my partner to finish with the other monsters. Shizome muses while looking for the exit. Speaking of whom, he is now face to face with some of the biggest members of the Shihisaki. One that Shizome had warned him about earlier, the large man with brass knuckles, comes up first. I'll fight this guy. He's the one who busted down the gate earlier. If he's got that kind of power, I can have some real fun. As the man is walking up, he introduces himself as Rapakendo. Tengai, stay out of this. He calls to the man with monk's clothing. Jotaro is just standing there with his arms crossed. If that is what this guy's name is, then I don't need to fight back right away. In fact, he could help me recharge a bit. With that thought and a hidden smile, Jotaro just says to bring it. Kendo does just that and unleashes his first punch on Jotaro, who in turn does nothing. In fact, he doesn't even move at all, which incises Kendo more. He has a feral grin. He starts unleashing a barrage of bullet punches on Jotaro. Rather than just stand there, Jotaro blocks a large number of the attacks. At one point he stopped and asked, "What are you doing?" "You're just blocking my attacks." Even though he can't see the other man's face, Rappa knows that his foe is smiling. Is he like that fat gum guy? That could mean I just powered him up all the more. He just let me attack so he can hit me harder. Kendo thought, and his feral grin grew to a manic smile. Well, as fun as it could be to take a hit you charged up from my own, I'm finishing this myself. Kendo charges at Jotaro again and unleashes his barrage of attacks. Jotaro blocks again, and then says, "You're right and wrong at the same time. I was using you to get a kinetic charge. But I could have finished this at any time." Kendo is taken aback by this. With a little smile and chuckle, Jotaro knocks away Kendo's barrage, before unleashing a punch that sends him flying so hard, he lands in the ocean. A few of the other that are left are terrified at this. Tengai tries to create a barrier to stop any attacks he could unleash. Only for Jotaro to kick it and shatter the barrier completely. And to make sure that he can't do it again, Jotaro hammer fist slams Tengai into the ground so hard it makes a crater. It is after this that the other largest member decides to take a crack at him. "Too bad you're a guy. I'd much prefer grabbing onto and draining a woman," the large man says before going for a grab. Jotaro smacks his hands away each time he tries. The man is getting more and more frustrated with each failed attack. "Fine then, I'll just use this." He pulls out a vial with a needle and injects himself. With that he boosts his power to where he can drain from a distance. "Now I've got you." Jotaro feels the pull of his energy and just smiles more. "So, you're another fool who thinks they are invincible due to their power. If you think you can, take it all." Jotaro does not try to stop the energy flow. Instead, he increases all of the energy flowing to the large man, who at first is drinking it up. But then he realizes he can't contain it. A blonde ally of his calls out, "Rikia, stop," but it is too late. Rikia's body is getting warped by the energy flowing into him. "I don't think I'll feel as bad about what has happened this time. And I shouldn't have before. You all brought this judgment down on yourselves," Jotaro says coldly. Rikia screams one last time before his body explodes from all the energy. With that done, Jotaro turns to the rest who are ready to pounce on him. One coats his arms in crystals, another takes out weapons from somewhere, and the third looks ready to try and eat the enemy before him. The second tries to take any weapon that might be there, but there are none on the person before him. The crystal man strikes down with all the weight and might he can muster. Jotaro blocks the blow, and then catches the one who tries to eat him. He then pushes back against the crystal arm and slams the one he caught down into the ground so hard it cracks. When the thief tries to stab and then shoot him, the knife breaks and the bullets don't even affect him. Jotaro is on him in a second and kicks the man in the face so hard he is sent flying through 3 walls. The crystal man attacks again, but Jotaro just smashes through the crystals he has grown before headbutting the man so hard he passes out. Well, at least that's done now too. He feels himself stop. In all the fracas, he had forgotten about the first one who tried to attack him. Call me chronostasis, since that is exactly the state you are in right now. I have to admit you are incredibly impressive. You managed to beat almost every member of the 8 precepts alone. But now you are done. I will make sure you can't get in Shisaki's way. He then takes out a dart gun and points it at Jotaro. He shoots him with the rough quirk destroying bullets. This may not take your quirk forever, but it will be enough to finish you. Goodbye, hero. Chronostasis draws his knife and goes to stab Jotaro in the stomach. But instead, the knife breaks. With his time restabilizing, Jotaro informs him that, "Yeah, I don't have a quirk. I don't have something that worthless." This shocks the villain and Jotaro finishes him with a punch to the face. He then speaks to Chizome to meet him deeper inside. He can sense that Chisaki is deeper inside the remodeled building. "I think I can guess where he is going," Chizome says. When the two meet back up, they head to where Jotaro can sense Chisaki, who is incredibly livid. The room he is in is where they usually keep Eri. But instead, it is just a dummy left behind by Saphantite. How did she get away? "Oh, you thought we were the main force to break her out, huh?" Jotaro mockingly says. "She was always the goal. Saving her and stopping your evil. You're done, Chisaki," Chizome says with finality, brandishing his blades at their foe. Chisaki just twitches a bit before turning and slamming his hand on the ground. With that, a barrage of stone knives come flying at the two. Both of them manage to dodge all of the attacks, but the room is again remodeled. And thus, the fight is on. Chizome and Jotaro manage to get close a few times, but Overhaul just keeps making new barriers to push them back. "Damn it, if I was at my full power, I could take him out easy. But I'm not at my best and I used up a lot of energy in the fight with that Rikia fellow. Jotaro thinks before Chizome gets tripped up and is stabbed multiple times. Chizome. Jotaro calls out and catches him. He breaks through a wall and the two escape for a bit to strategize and heal. Chizome is bleeding from multiple spots, but Jotaro offers to heal him. With a nod from the former, Jotaro uses his healing gamma wave on the wounded ally. Wait, what is going on? Is he? These thoughts run through Jotaro's mind before Chizome stands up again. He then says, I know you can finish this. But you need a little time to get your charge back. I'll buy you as much time as I can. Even without the thing I didn't need. With a smile, Chizome draws both of his blades and goes back in to face the madman Overhaul. Jotaro decides to get desperate and punches into a few of the electric lines to recharge himself. When that isn't quite enough, he also creates a few explosions in the kitchen to absorb the kinetic force and the heat energy of the explosion. While he is doing that, Chizome has begun to fight Overhaul in earnest. He doesn't try to attack him often, just enough to where the villain's attention is on him. But once again he gets tripped up by Overhaul, who proceeds to trap him in the stone around him. Before he can strike any kind of final blow, Jotaro reappears and kicks Overhaul in the side so hard he breaks multiple bones. Not that it is too much of a problem for him, Overhaul just puts himself back together with his quirk. Now I can fully finish this, Jotaro says with a hidden face of determination. He rushes at Overhaul, breaking through his stone barriers in an attempt to get close to him. When he thinks he is right next to the villain, he breaks through to grab and end the fight. But it was a feint. Overhaul had made a dummy to sneak around behind Jotaro, and he gets close enough to touch him. If only Eri were here so I could show her how feeble the hope you heroes create really is. Now die, he says using his quirk to make Jotaro explode. But nothing happens. Overhaul is confused at this turn of events and asks why it isn't working. It may have a few minutes ago, but I'm charged up again. As is my barrier around my body. You need physical contact, right? Doesn't work if you don't touch me physically. To which Jotaro grabs Overhaul's shirt and headbutts him so hard, Overhaul's nose bleeds profusely and his skull is cracked in multiple places. Jotaro proceeds to grab the villain's face and use his healing gamma wave again. When Overhaul realizes he healed him, he just laughs and attempts to use his quirk again. But nothing happens. While this has been going on, Jotaro freed Chizome and both walk up to him. If you're wondering what happened, he did the same thing to me he did to you. He healed me, and it destroyed my quirk. Guess what you wanted won't happen after all. You just wanted to torture and remain in power. You're just a sad, pathetic piece of garbage. Not even worth killing. To which Chizome finishes with a kick to Overhaul's head. With that done, the two make their way out as the police have started to move in. You ready for the next part of the plan, Chizome? Jotaro asks. His helmet having been lost in some point, Chizome just has a somber look on his face but says, yes I am. At the Shihisaki headquarters, the police were storming the remains of the building. It was nearing midnight when the call came into the police that something had happened. They had planned to call some heroes, but it seemed like most from the area were avoiding the place. When they and a few heroes arrived, they saw the remains of what must have been a huge battle. The building itself looked like it had been remodeled inside and out. Not to mention was much larger than they originally believed. It took a while, but they managed to find the members who were supposed to live in the building. Many of them were in very rough shape, missing limbs, cuts across their bodies, and a terrified look on their faces while muttering something about a monster sword. If this is a joke, I'm not laughing, Captain. What happened here? A man with green hair, yellow eyes, and wearing a formal suit asked the police captain who had called him in. This was Sir Night-Eye, former sidekick to All Might and the man who had been investigating the Yakuza and the Shihisaki for a while now. I honestly don't know. We got a call from a few residents about 11:30 that something was happening at this location. The stone-faced, literally in this case, officer told the Pro. They weren't the ones across the street, however. The ones who called were about 3 streets down. The captain went on to explain that most of the nearby residents were away from their homes at this time. They even had proper alibis to back up their statements. These must be some of the thugs who the Yakuza employed. Whoever did this counted on that they would be away for other reasons. Night Eye mused as he looked at the images of the people who lived across the street from the hideout. While he was thinking, he saw the members he had been investigating being wheeled out on stretchers. Seems whoever did this did quite a number on these men. That's for sure. 3 members are missing limbs. We followed what looked like an impact outline of one of the members and found him floating in the ocean unconscious. The others have multiple broken bones and similar. The thought of who could have done this ran through Night Eye's mind more than anything else. The how or why were important but not the most pressing matter. From what was described, only someone on par with All Might could have done some of this damage. But no one was on that level. Sir Night Eye was pulled out of his thoughts by his cell phone ringing. He was tempted to ignore it, but the fact it was coming from a pay phone not too far from his agency made him curious. "Hello, who is this?" he asked, more out of habit than anything. "This is Sir Night Eye, correct?" At said person's affirmative, the voice on the line continued. "I'm guessing you are currently at the Shihisaki hideout right now." "Yes." "Don't ask how I know for now. I need you to come back to your office. You can bring the police. I have information and a few other matters to discuss with you regarding the incident at your current location. I'll be waiting in front of your agency." With that said, the person on the hung up. Night Eye was unsettled by the whole matter but knew this could be a big help to know what happened. He told the captain he needed a few of his men and they hurried back to his agency. When they got there, they were all stunned by the sight. Sitting in front of his office was a man who fit some of the last word descriptions of some heroes. This man fit the description of the hero killer. The strangest thing though was that he was sitting on the front step to his agency, with 2 swords in front of him and what appeared to be a young girl in his arms who was sleeping. The police called for backup and took aim with their guns. But the villain made no aggressive moves toward them. He just sat there before addressing Night Eye. "You are the former sidekick of All Might?" "Yes. I am." "Who is the young girl there? And how is it you know about what happened with the Yakuza?" With that confirmation, the hero killer stood up and asked one of the officers if they could take the girl. Once that was done and she was further away, he picked up the swords that were on the ground and handed them to Night Eye. The girl was a captive of the Yakuza. They used her blood to make weapons and drugs. An associate recruited me to save her and take them down. When he said that, Night Eye and the police were just stunned. A villain recruited by a vigilante. And now said villain is giving us information. I'm confused. You are the hero killer, are you not? At the man's nod, Night Eye presses on. Then why help take the Yakuza down? And can you tell me who the person who recruited you is? With a small smile, the hero killer starts in with, Chizome. My name is Chizome. And as for why, the people who recruited me reminded me of what it means to be a hero. Trying to save someone. They wanted to do it, but they needed assistance. They showed and helped me see things I wasn't willing to believe in for quite a while. Night Eye was surprised by the calm, almost serene way the man described matters. Was this really the same crazed killer who had been on a tear through the hero community? As for who it was that recruited me, I don't know. I never got their names. But I can tell you they are the ones who have been behind some of the takedowns of various groups. Rather than the fake heroes. With that, Night Eye is more unsettled about the whole matter. Chizome on the other hand just smiles a bit and thinks back a few minutes. Flashback. As the 2 warriors made their way to the agreed rendezvous point, Saphentite was holding Eri and humming to her. She was asleep but woke up when Jotaro landed on the rooftop. It is done, Chizome said, taking off his helmet. He didn't know how, but even with the older woman's hood down he couldn't tell what she looked like. Thank you for helping with this, Chizome. All that's left is to get this girl. Eri, Saphentite said. When the 2 looked to her she said, her name is Eri. Right, Eri. We need to get her to Night Eye. He's at least trustworthy and we need to pass the info to convict the Yakuza. With nods all around from the adults, Eri was sitting there confused. Jotaro noticed this and said to her, don't worry. You don't have to be afraid of us, and we aren't afraid of you. He reached up and patted her head gently, which surprised her, but she quickly grew accustomed to it. Saphentite decides to take this time to hand her to Jotaro, who in turn just takes her in his arms and starts humming to her. Eri eventually starts to fall asleep again. Are you sure you're okay with this? Saphantite asks Chizome, offering to help him get out. I'm sure. It's time I face my own justice. I'll take the girl to Night Eye as well as the information you gave me. With that nod given, they quietly fly over to the Night Eye agency and Chizome uses a pay phone to call the hero. Flashback end. With the capture of both Stain and the defeat of the Shihisaki, many were wanting to claim credit for this matter. Especially from the police and local heroes. This was a victory thanks to an outside source. I don't care what the commission may want to say, I will not accept credit for this matter. Night Eye told the representative and police chief. And that is why you are closer than most to being a true hero, Sir Night Eye. Chizome says as the police walk him to transport van. At hearing that, Night Eye stops them and asks what he meant. Too much of this society is built around a warped version of a hero. Most are in it for fame, prestige, money, etc. You and a few others, including the ones who recruited me, are true heroes. They only want to help people. They aren't just looking to play with their powers. That was why I helped them. And that is why I will only see All Might, the various vigilantes that are out there doing the right thing, and a little bit you as heroes. At hearing this, Night Eye and a few police are stunned, and a bit moved. Night Eye himself thought back to All Might and how impressive he was. And what he inspired. He may be a madman and a killer, but his focus on heroes may be from a genuine place. Night Eye says out loud, while two figures watch from a distant building. And with a nod they disappear into the night. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.